All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hash Church episode 62. I am going to quickly send out the links as I do each day when we start this off. Boom, bam, boom. And wow, what a week. What a week it's been since Hash Church 61. All sorts of crazy shit has happened. We got Instagram closing down accounts. We got Facebook closing down Hash Church groups. I think DNA lost their Instagram account. I think Subcool lost his Instagram account, as well as his. Let me shut that down real quick. Oh, good, that is on mute. Subcool lost his Weed Nerds account on Facebook, and all sorts of things have been happening. I think nothing more important than what I'm going to mention right now. Losing an account can seem like a real bummer. It can really be, upsetting when you lose an account that you built over time. But what I wanted to mention right now is something way more important than an Instagram account or a Facebook account. And that is the fact that we almost lost a really good friend recently by the name of Jendo Hendricks. Jen Doe was in an incredible accident, and she's not going to be able to make it today to Hash Church, but she asked that I read her letter and I share a GoFundMe page for her friend Harlan.
She's a friend of hers died. I think she died in a car wreck that she was in.
Yes, I'm about to read that right now. And welcome Etienne and welcome Nick. I'm going to read this quickly. This is a support page for her friend Harlan Ryman. It's a memorial fund, and I'm going to put this page up in the Hash Church group. So if you guys are watching Hash Church right now and you're not a part of the Hash Church group on Facebook, you're going to want to become a part of it, because it's going to be how you can get in touch with this GoFundMe. It's easy enough. It's gofundme.com/Harland, HARLAND, So I'm going to read this page real quick that Jen wrote on the fund. Hello, for those of you who don't know me, actually this is written by Pat. Jen's story is right below. My name is Pat Emerson, and we are raising money to help with the cost of Harlan's memorial expenses. I will be traveling back to Brooklyn to help his mom with the overwhelming tasks that lie ahead. I am reaching out to all of you and asking you to please donate if you can. I thank you in advance. Peace and love be with you. Hug the ones you love daily. Harlan is an amazing soul that will never be forgotten. Below, I am attaching Jen Doe's story. Please take a moment to read it. Jen is my dear friend and sister, so this was written on the 26th of this month. Today I'm thankful for life, and especially Harlan. I sure wish they were still here so I could hug you super tight and tell you thank you so much. I am beyond grateful for my littles, my family, and my friends. Without all of you, this life would not be worth living. I know everyone has been worried and wondering what happened, so I would like to share part of my story with you on this day of thanks. Harlan Rhyme saved my life on Sunday afternoon in the freezing cold waters of the Willamette River. I was going under the second we burst out of the submerged, sinking car. My clothes were so heavy and cold they were taking me down. I knew I was going to die. At first, my memory of that first 15 seconds in the water was fuzzy. It all just happened so fast that I couldn't put it all together. But now I see it clearly as day. I remember taking my last breath as the last few inches of air trapped inside the car disappeared. It just went down so fast. Harlan and I busted through the back as it completely submerged and found ourselves in the rushing open water. Pat barely made it out of the driver's side window, and suddenly we were all free. I was gasping for breath, kicking so hard to try and get my head up, and I remember him grabbing my jacket and pulling me up so I could breathe. I couldn't keep my head above the water. My wet coat was too heavy, and I was struggling to swim. As the car sank, he helped me fight the current and find my footing on the roof of the vehicle as it settled to the river floor. Right before he drifted just out of my reach. I have no idea how I was able to stay on the car in the current. The freezing cold water was still above my waist and pushing me from every direction, but somehow I was able to stay put. You saved my life, buddy. You gave me the fighting chance that I needed to make it out of that river alive. I so badly wished I could have done the same for you, my friend. I wish so badly that things could have come out differently. It was not your time to go. I still owe you a hug, and I wish that you were here so I could give it to you now. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you right back. Instead, I am hugging you with all my heart and soul, and will never forget what you did for me. My littles still have their mommy because of you. My parents still have their daughter, and I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to tell your heroic story because you are my fucking hero, and I love you dearly. I'm so thankful that I'm able to still hug Pat, and I'm so beyond thankful that we don't have to go through this unfortunate aftermath alone. I'm so thankful that we still have each other, and we will carry Harlan with us in our hearts as the beautiful angel that he is for the rest of our days. I thought I was going to lose them both, and I will never forget the fear and overwhelming love that I felt for my friends that afternoon. Freak fucking accident. The universe was against us. We were in exactly the wrong place at the right time for a disaster disguised as a fast-rising tide to change our lives forever. Could have happened to anyone. People drive that sandbar all the damn time, and I will always wonder, why us? Had Pat not kept the vehicle above water as long as he did with his quick reaction, and gangster driving skills, none of us would have gotten out of that car alive. Things were fine as we started back across the rocks, but when we hit the halfway point, a small wave bumped us just enough to lift the back tires just a hair, just barely enough to lose traction and send our back tires spinning as they began slipping down the edge of the sandbar. The current was pushing us further into the deep water, and Pat was able to keep the front tires on the rocks and the car afloat just long enough for fishermen across the way to see us struggling. Shortly before it submerged completely with all three of us trapped inside. Things could have been much different, but as I think of the possibility of all of us making it out alive, my mind quickly goes to the possibility of none of us being here today. Harlan lost his life that day in the river, but he saved us, both of us. My heart goes out to his loved ones, family, and friends. He was a special soul, is a special soul, and will forever claim a huge piece of my heart. No words can change the overwhelming loss that we feel, but we must carry on. We must not take this second chance at life for granted. If we allow this to change us, we make sure that it is the changing us in a good way, because that is what he would want. It is easy to forget that life is so precious and fragile and can be gone in an instant. Please, I beg you with all my might, please make sure you make every day here count. Love you, Pat. Love you, Harlan. You're both forever in my thoughts. Love you all and appreciate the support. We're going to need it. Enjoy your dinners, say a little prayer for us, and remember, life is what we make it. Also need to send a special thanks to all the rescuers, the fishermen that pulled us from the water. Thanks to your quick response today. I will never forget any of you. Thank you so much for being there. Jen Doe Hendricks. So that is the story. That's what happened. Harlan Ryman Memorial Fund. They've raised $3,470 of $12K. This is a good one, guys. This is something that's worth 5 or 10 or 20 bucks of your energy, and it's at the GoFundMe.com. Harlan Ryman. Check it out, and we're really glad that you're still with us, Jen. Pat, I don't know you, but I'm really glad that you're still with us too. And Harlan, I never got to know you, bro, but thanks for saving my friends. All right, sad note. Now let's blow smoke towards the Vatican, as our good buddy Rob Clark would have us do every Sunday.
To Harlan and Jen.
To Harlan and Jen. And Pat.
And Pat.
Well, welcome to Hash Church 62, everybody.
That's a humbling start.
Yeah, right. Holy shit, Mark. Wow. My love goes out to them. You know, tragedy happens so quickly in such unexpected ways.
In an instant. In an instant.
In the blink of an eye.
You know, I thought it could have just as easily been us bitching about losing our group or DNA losing their Instagram, and I just thought, you know what? That is just not even close.
No, doesn't even matter.
No.
You know, in all honesty, Instagram gave back Strain Hunters, which had like 190K, so I think they're going to come around and stop harassing us hot people so much.
I saw that as well. It made me feel good that Arian and the boys got their Strain Hunters back. That's, I mean, next to DNA, it's got to be one of the biggest.
No.
The biggest.
No, not even close.
No, I just mean the cannabis ones.
Weedstagram had like 700,000, and
yeah, but
there's some other ones.
Weedstagram is like for quality. I mean,
He sold it. He sold it. The kid that started it was a bud tender at Greenhouse, and he sold. It was a hobby, and he sold it.
I knew him. I know him, but I'm just saying the quality of the account compared to Strain Hunters. I mean, they have an impeccable photographer. He's putting up like just baller photographs. Like I'm telling you.
Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar's he impresses me.
He's one of my favorite photographers, honestly, in the whole world. I love his composition, his eye. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's strong. It's strong for sure.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. He is such a fantastic photographer, Mr. X on Instagram for those that are watching. You know, I want to bring up the fact that I didn't know until after that people in Rhode Island put together like a viewing party, and that really blew me away. I mean, I'm kind of doing this because it reminds me of what it was like when we used to do rallies and we'd get out and we'd speak. And a lot of why I started getting on stage is because I felt like, you know, as much as I loved Jack and Chris Conrad and others, there was a lot that was left unsaid. And I felt like if you get up stage and you didn't go there and scream at the audience, but you talked to them and you communicated, that there could be a lot of thought that transpires between, you know, the rally and the crowd. And that's kind of why I started getting my voice out there and speaking up. And Hash Church, in my opinion, does that too. And, you know, to see people gathering together and smoking together and turning it into like a communal act is so satisfying to me because it's really all about the community. I mean, we're not always going to agree. And I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, one of the things I've always liked about you, Mark, is that when we disagree, you're so gentlemanly about it. You're so diplomatic about it. You know, where I would be telling people, shut the fuck up. You're like so gentle. You're such a dad. And I love that about you, you know. And it's one of the things that's kind of always turned me on to this forum. If that makes truly honest sense.
Well, it's my Canadian roots.
Man, dude, every time I see your posts, all I hear in my brain is, meanwhile in Canada, Mark is standing on a snowmobile. You know, like sanity is somewhere in the world.
Hemptor gave us a voice, though. I mean, it allowed us to speak out to those, because back in the day, for every person they said that was at a rally, there was 10 to 20 at home because of passing out of the flyers and everything else. So in the end, you know, only people who showed up at the rallies were the dedicated, the hardcore of the hardcore. So we were not just preaching, we were preaching to each other because there was no internet, there was no information, there was no Facebook, there was no way to get out to meet people except to show up there, hopefully someone smoking a joint, pass a joint, talk, or as we were able to do, go on the stage and speak out, because there was no one from our generation. It was Jack, it was Dennis, it was the old generation, and we respected them, but we needed to connect ourselves as well as to feel that connection with the community. And that was, I mean, you and I met on Hemp Tour in Virginia in '94, you know, and that's the beauty of it. And that's why I also come to Hash Church, because I feel we're back preaching to the converted, but the converted have so much knowledge to absorb, and we have so much to give now, so much more than we had 20 years ago.
You remember Todd McArea having his little meetings about the potential for the internet, guys. If we make alt groups and we talk about this stuff, it'll spread. You know, he would be glowing right now if he saw us all sitting in different, you know, states, countries, continents, having these conversations and sharing the information we have. Because really, when we started off, all of us believed that if we share the information, that's it, man. The information's infectious. The truth will set you free. We just got to get the information out there, and then the game's over for them. I still believe it to be true, to be real.
Yeah, I do as well. I'm in firm belief. Well, I mean, geez, I don't know if I'd be gathering here every single Sunday and spending the amount of time that I do, you know, on these computers, with these cameras, with all this videoing and making videos and uploading, and it's, you know, there's a real sort of connection involved in it that, and the timing is now, regardless of, you know, you could, anyone that's been around for the last 20 to 25 years, you really get this feeling that, like, there's this whole new group of people that have come of age, and they're just ready for it. They are 100% ready for it, and thank God that we were able to remove ourselves from the segregated areas that they put us, the overgrows and the cannabis worlds and the cannabis-only site that basically kept us preaching to the choir and barely ever, you know, now we're on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, and everyone uses those social medias. Many, many people use those social medias that are not the choir, the people that we definitely want to hit. So I appreciate that as well. I built my community for years. My full melt bubble, I don't even know what year I started it. It must have been in '05 or maybe before. I can't even remember. But it never got built to what I wanted it to be built to, compared to just this YouTube channel or my Instagram account. You know, any of those simple little things have just allowed for an open dialogue with a larger group of people. That's for sure.
I agree with you totally. Sorry, I was just marketing us. You know, I am a bit disgusted. I mean, with what happened to us on Facebook, I had to wake up, so to speak, with a Narcotics Anonymous message in my friggin' phone. Right. Me, I don't even smoke cigarettes. It takes me a week to eat a fucking bar of chocolate, and they're worried about me hitting hard drugs, which was funny because it's like, wait a minute, when did Facebook become Amsterdam? Because Amsterdam used to have all the signs that no junk, no hard drugs. So what Facebook is now? They're going to wake up and smell the difference between cannabis and cocaine, or cannabis and liquor, or I don't know. Where are they going to draw the line? And I just can't believe that, like, so arbitrarily they throw away our group and they're like, F you, go away.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty brazen in the sense that I sent them a message right back and basically said, my group got erased. It's all legal. There's nothing illegal going on. It's all like cannabis, and like a lot of people have been helped from the group. And I even said, and I've started another group since called Hash Church, and I'll gladly delete it when you give me back my old one.
Did Cartman from Facebook write back and say, "Fuck you, hippie"?
Well, you know, I thought at first, I was like, I wonder if they'll delete the new Hash Church group right away, but I woke up this morning and I was happy to see, geez, there must be 700 people in there already now.
Well, I added a bunch of people who had friended me via Facebook. I went and added, but if you guys don't realize, the Facebook page for Hash Church went down yesterday, so there's a new one up, people, so please go sign up and join up and spread the word.
You know, in the meantime, too, you know, I've had a community now since 2009. I initially put it together for the THC Expo, but we are, you know, everyone listening can go to hemp.xxx. We're not going to get thrown off. You can post all the weed photos you want. You can fucking make groups, talk about hash making. No one's going to get mad. And, you know, that's the main reason I started my own community, because at the time it was happening on MySpace. Facebook was absolute bigots. And this is just common practice with these corporations, you know, that it's bigotry towards cannabis, where they'll allow alcohol, they'll allow, you know, all these other things, but, you know, cigars are cool, but cannabis joints not so much. And I'm just sick of it. I think we all are. Mark, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I just went to talk, and then I was like, oh, yeah, I'm muted. I find I'm just loud. I cough, I type, I knock shit over, and it's like nothing bugs me more than when other people do that shit, so I'm just muting myself like crazy. Oh, I have no idea when my rosin bags will be in stock. I've ordered them 3 times. The last time I ordered like thousands of them, and they just sold out right away, so I just can't even fucking keep them in stock. You guys are maniacs out there pressing.
That's awesome. Hey, I want to bring something up. I was going to wait till Tony was on, but we talked with Tony. People were saying that I was anti-sunshine, and I'm not. And the thing is when he made the comment, what he really was talking about was resin gland size. And when he said it, the thing I heard was, you know, basically a resin gland can't get to its full size if grown indoors, and I don't believe that. You know, I think that plants can express themselves fully in indoors as much as they can outdoors under the right conditions. So when he said that, I thought it was a generalization in a way. Some strains might have bigger resin glands outside than they do indoors. You know, most of the time plants develop the best under controlled situations. So, but shit, I mean, I still think a greenhouse with augmented light is the best way to go. But then you're controlling the environment around, you know, all that natural light with the greenhouse. So I love sun, just for the sake of conversation.
Well, you do live in California. You do live in California, and you're constantly photographing it, so I know you love the sun. And in fact, you know what? There were people that said, oh, Todd doesn't like the sun, but there were just as many people that were like, that's not what he's saying at all. So
Trust us, we're all sun worshippers. We love.
And even Tony at the end was listening to himself, and I think he realized, you know what, things get pretty big actually, you know.
yeah. Hey, we should give shout out to DNA Genetics. You guys go follow their new page. Let's get them back up to 150,000 where they were. They are at DNA_genetics is their new page. And welcome, Horatio. Is your Instagram still intact?
Now I gotta go check my phone. Don't play around.
Quite a few accounts got deleted. Not mine, not Todd's, not anyone else's in here, but DNA got bumped. Subcool got bumped. I guess bigger accounts.
Yeah, I don't want a bigger account. I still got an account.
Dude, I'd be so bummed. Just a bummer. Why do people want to go around and mess with people? It's like, man, leave those people alone. I swear it's an automatic thing where if you get a certain complaint or a certain amount of complaints, they just like cut that shit. Psh, done.
Well, one of the reasons that I know Harborside had their account taken away and they got it back. And I know originally when they took away our Facebook accounts, they were talking about labeling items for sale and or listing a price associated with picture. So that could be something if they were trying to say that something was for sale. But Instagram really isn't used in that way. So I'm not really sure why Instagram's.
Well, there's a whole program that works with Instagram that is exactly that same thing. You put your price, you put your amount, you put your limits, and basically you run it through Spreezy, and Spreezy basically monitors the account, and when anyone just writes their email in the account, Spreezy sends that person a checkout page through PayPal or whatever you've got set up to sell that product. And it works in conjunction with Instagram. I wonder if that's a problem, why Instagram wouldn't just shut down Spreezy and not allow them to do that. Anyone?
Was that Nick's response?
I'm sorry, I was
Feels like a
watching
huge
him
press.
squish hash.
Yeah, squishing. That's it. Pressure.
Nick's like, I will squish this bud.
Is that the DeWalt wireless version?
Is that how it's going to be? Is that what's going to happen here? Is that what's...
Hey, can we look down at Mark's stash one more time? Can you just put the camera back towards what the heck is to your right, Mark?
All right, so we have squeezed out chips. We've got some of Tony's terpenes. We've got all sorts of different cured rosins. We got our rosins from the West Coast crew, and then they just give me hash. Those fucking guys are so generous. They've given me all these grams of hash. A beautiful, beautiful full melt.
So you don't have any choice there, Mark.
I have no choice. I actually invited them over today for Hash Church because I was like, man, you guys, you represent so hard in Hash Church and you don't even know. I'm puffing so much of your shit. Actually, one of the combinations from their rosin, which was, it was this one. It was Master Scout flower rosin mixed with Tony's Jack Frost terpenes. I'm not gonna fucking lie. It is the greatest fucking flavor, the greatest taste I've ever hit with cannabis. It is insane. Completely insane.
That's insane.
Man, I'm telling you, I have no words. Every single person I've hit it with, it tastes like candy in your mouth. And neither the Jack nor the flower, the Master Scout, tastes like that on their own. They only taste like it together. It's the strongest form of synergy that I've seen in a terpene and a cannabinoid, adding terps to cannabinoids. It blew me away. And I mean, I have all sorts of other ones here. There's 8 other flavors here, and I have not even come close to what...
So the snozberry tastes like snozberry.
Man, I'm telling you, snozberry. And do you know that he wrote a book years later and he used that term to describe a dude's penis? No joke. That is a fucking piece of history you did not know.
Is that a pair of snozberries, or he whipped out his snozberry?
I think it was a single snozberry.
Who wrote this?
Who wrote that? Who wrote that kid's books with the
Dr.
snozberry?
Seuss.
Dr. Seuss?
No, I just read this recently. Let me look it up now.
Killing me right now. I've read all those books. I didn't really run into any penis jokes.
Oh, it was from Snozberries were from
Willy Wonka.
Wonka. And so he makes a joke and he says, you know, the snozberries taste like snozberries. So what he was saying was those kids lick dick flavored wallpaper. Because it was wallpaper, the snozberry wallpaper. I just saw that the other day. I don't know why I know that, but it's pretty useless.
I'm not sure that's the intent of that, Mark.
Google it, Mark. You're a scientist. Do your research before you open your mouth. Come on.
I'll let someone else Google shit.
All right, I'm having another hit. Oh, you know who can Google shit? Graham. Graham is a Hash Church watcher. That guy is the most professional Google researcher on the planet. So Google it, Graham, and post it up. We know you will, brother.
If there's a wiki page for it, he will find it.
If there isn't, he will write it.
Yeah, he'll wiki.
Wiki that shit up, brother.
It just really sucks though that they deleted all that content. You know, I mean, there's just a whole lot of information other than just people showing off pictures of their stuff.
Well, good. Thank you for bringing that up because I would love to tell this to everyone right now. I know you guys want to be like represent in Hash Church, but I'll tell you, the best way to do it is not to post a picture of your bud or your hash or your rosin because we have rooms for those specific things. Team Dry Sift for Dry Sift, Water Extraction Hash Makers Group for water hash, or the Water Extraction Drying Technique if you want to learn more about that. Trichome Farming got closed, but I'll be bumping it back up again today and starting that group again. But really what Hash Church is for is to share valid information that we can talk about on Hash Church, not to show off your product, which is like collecting likes, collecting comments. Do that in one of the other groups. Don't dilute the group because it's the way Facebook works, and I know there are search parameters, but people really do like scrolling, and if we can keep all of the posts gems, then you know, and I apologize when I go through and I erase people saying thanks for the ad, or when I erase people who post just a picture of a bud or a piece of hash. It's not that you know, I don't want you to feel like you're in trouble. I just don't feel that it's really helping the group. I think we could all elevate the group, the quality of the posts together by simply, you know, not trying to post to be seen, if that makes enough sense. You know, this whole internet day, you know, the classic picture of the dude with his camera down, his phone down by his crotch, and it's all girls, and they're all like licking the phone. It's like Instagram likes. We don't want that. It's like post something that's valid, that creates a dialogue. It can be controversial, no problem. But just don't post a picture of your fucking hash or your rosin or your buds. There are other groups for that. So there we go.
And I see people already putting the knowledge back up. Unfortunately, people have archived some of that information, so thanks to everybody who's recontributing that information again.
I still have a good feeling that we are going to get the old group back. There's nothing that we did wrong. I can't imagine. And I mean, if the old group stays gone, then they're just going to delete the new group too. So hopefully it all works out. I mean, I like to think that we're not choking people out so badly that they're complaining about a group that really doesn't affect them in a negative way, that could actually potentially affect them in a positive way almost immediately if they just opened up the page and read a few of the articles that people post in there.
Prohibition isn't about truth. Prohibition is about lies, and the lies have been so pervasive and so invasive that it's become part of society. So to go, you know, to accept something like us or Hash Church is still difficult for people, and because Facebook's open and we can add anyone, at some point you can't tell me, you know, there aren't cops watching this and there aren't people who aren't upset and who don't watch this just to keep an eye on what the fuck we're talking about and what we're doing. So, you know, to think that everybody has, you know, wonderful motives in this world is a sunshine and lollipops kind of situation, which none of us exist in.
Yeah, it's just a bummer because it was a convenient forum to have post-church discussions in more detail where you could share information. And like the one example I remember was our discussion of the ensemble effect and how it's related to not just the mixture of cannabinoids, but there's an interaction between the terpenes. And there was a long post that had 5 different scientific references that had showed the interactions between cannabinoids and terpenes and how they do have a synergistic effect in mammals. And this is peer-reviewed literature that's out there on the web, and it's a discussion that just started in Hash Church but then sort of took on a life of its own in a thread on the Facebook page. And it makes me not want to add content onto a Facebook page if I know that pictures of kids hash are eventually going to get that page taken down. Then it's a waste of my time.
It's not pictures of kids hash, though. There's so many weed groups. I mean, not to be rude, I think that it's definitely we're being targeted for.
I know, and Instagram plays a huge role, Todd. Like when those hash makers in Colorado are posting their pours, those end up being translated into lines at the dispensaries when those guys have their drops, and then that hash is sold out before it even is reaching the dispensary because of the of what's built up because of what's being posted on Instagram. People are like, holy shit, I need to get that hash. Woo, they're right to trying to figure out. So it is a powerful marketing tool to get product into consumers' hands.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that. I wasn't speaking to it like that, Mark. I was just saying that that posting pictures. I have put pictures of weed all over. I don't get.
Right.
My Instagram pushes through and has pushed through to Facebook for the past 4 years, 5 years now with Hemp XXX, and I've never had a problem. And I post weed and hash and BHO and water and you name it. Look at my Instagram. There's like 2,000 photos on it. I don't think it's kids' photos going through our Facebook that's fucking with us. I think people are reporting it.
It's popularity.
For content, and that will cause the computer to trigger.
It's the reporting that closes the pages down. That's absolutely right. I just wanted to mention that. So someone complained about something out there, Mark, and whoever is the administrator of the page is owed an explanation by Facebook on exactly what was offensive that shut it down, or else we're going to have the same issue again.
I sent them a message, so I'm definitely on that point. It's I should mention as well, because enough people have asked me in the room, I do also have an online forum. It's at fullmeltbubble.com. I don't use it too much. I tried to get it going, but if people are worried that their posts are going to get deleted off of Facebook, they're welcome to copy and paste them into that forum. So, in my opinion, I just keep trucking forward. I'm not going to stop posting. It's exactly what they want you to do, is to stop posting and sharing this information. And the bottom line, Mark, is the people that got to read that were helped by it. And it was a good dialogue, and so many people have been helped. I saw a guy the other day, and I'm pretty sure he posted, Hash Church saved my life.
Yeah, well, there was a great post the other day by a guy out there who, again, was at the beginning of his academic career, who was asking about academic career paths, whether it was going to be in, botany or biology or chemistry. And there was a lot of informed comments on that thread that were not just useful to that young man who's thinking about going to college, but useful for anyone who would be at that point in their career where they're thinking about, what kind of academic training do I need? And that's all useful discussion that has nothing to do with people, posting inappropriate content that should be removed from Facebook. That's all.
Yeah, I just wanted to reply to someone in chat. They're asking if the site is down. It's not down. Fullmeltbubble.com. It's still up and running and active. So there you go. There's a few varieties, you know, between Todd and myself. There are those two sites. I'm always going to build up the Facebook groups. Unless they delete me right off of Facebook, I'll continue. I know for a fact what we're doing is not wrong. It's a good thing. We're sharing information.
Hey, Marcus.
Yeah,
I'm getting a text from Jen Doe. Can you send her the link?
I did. It's in her. You know what? Can we not interrupt people like that? It comes across as so rude. If you can just post it as writing, like texting in the little thing there, then I lose my train of thought. And I did indeed send Jen
Yeah, I just don't feel right sending her the link without asking you first. I'm sorry.
Oh, weird. She's saying that it's not there. Someone else might have to send this to her. Let me see.
Well, I was just trying to respond to the comment that this morning's church is a sausage fest.
Well, I invited Hillary and I invited Heather, and Jen had told me that she wasn't going to be able to make it. Church is generally a sausage fest. It's we got to get more. You know what though? I will say this: like there are a lot more women involved in the cannabis industry lately, and it does put a smile on my face to see them just taking the. I mean, there's always been great women at the helm of the cannabis industry, like Hillary Black, and you got Debbie down there. You got what was her name? The Corral.
Chloe Villana, who heads the Cloverleaf University.
Valerie.
Carell. Yep, Valerie and Mike.
Yeah, Valerie and Mike. Those are
Sika,
people.
my old favorite.
Yeah, lots of great women, and just lots more coming on board and moving things forward.
Would you like to have Elvie on one weekend, Mark?
Yes.
That would be fantastic. Elvie, for those listening, she's the first woman to get medical marijuana from the United States government back in the 80s. They sent her 300 joints a month for her condition. They grow it at the University of Mississippi and they process it through Research Triangle Institute. And she uses it for like glaucoma. And instead of just being quiet about it, she has been the loudest activist I've known since I've become an activist. She's always out there pushing her story and trying to explain to people that they deserve what she gets. It's beautiful. She's such a hero to me.
That's awesome.
She is amazing. She was with me when we met on Hemp Tour. I did a tour in '93 with her and a tour in '94, and she's been through every United State telling people and showing her with her tin saying, hey, I sued the government for 12 years to get this because she has got glaucoma, and she basically lost one eye, and she got busted in Florida, Hollywood, Florida. She got busted, and her local community then realized when she said, I'm a medical patient, I'm going blind, I need this for my eye. And the community was outpouring of love. And in fact, if I recall, when the cops busted her, she had just harvested her plants, and they were in the freezer, and they didn't look in the freezer, and she was able to actually keep her plants. But this is back in the 70s, folks. This is talking 80s. I think she won in 1978. But an outpouring from the community said, hey, you're sick, you need pot, let us know, we'll get you pot. And so she then sued the government and then won that right, and she was the first woman to win that right. And she didn't rest on her laurels or hide like the original cannabis patient did, and she went out and she yelled from every rooftop that she could to everyone to listen. And let me tell you, there was going on Hemp Tour with her was bulletproof, because you got one-on-one or you got a group talking to her. She was a mother. She was going blind while she was raising her children, okay? And there was no one, when she spoke her truth and whipped out her tin of joints and said, look, this comes, the DEA delivers this to me. There was no one that went, bullshit. I mean, of course, they thought that in their head, but she had it in spades, because it blew everything out what they were telling us about the drug war, that we're just young, lazy drug users, et cetera, et cetera. This was a real-life mom. This was going out there, and I got to give Elvie props, because she stayed out there year after year, state after state, rally after rally, just going out and spreading the word. So if there is definitely a grandmother of cannabis, that woman deserves her place and respect in our community, without a doubt. She's earned it in spades.
How about Brownie Mary? There's no such thing as recreational cannabis use. It's all medicinal.
You want to talk about a sailor mouth woman? Holy shit. I loved her, but man, she would make me blush. And I was in the fucking army. And let me tell you, her and Dennis together, Todd will tell you, story
I
after
can't
story.
repeat it. I had Mary and Dennis in my kitchen making brownies back in the 90s, 94, and she was talking to him, telling him to go get her cigarettes, like, unbelievably. I was, like, blushing, and he was like, okay, Mary. It was so awesome. Their relationship was so tight, like, and she looked great in the photo. She looked like Grandma holding brownies, but my God, when she would get up there, she was so crass. I loved her, though. Brownie Mary was so rad. Great woman.
We're shouting out all the good, great women in cannabis industry. We got to give a welcome to Tony V's in the house, and the Cuban grower just rolled in. Welcome, guys.
What's up, bro?
Man, we started it pretty heavy today with Jen Doe's story. You know, she damn near died, drowned in a car there, and her friend who saved her life actually passed away. So we mentioned him, Harland Ryman, and his GoFundMe. It's costing an arm and a leg to just put him in the ground and have services. And they want to help sort of make that, just alleviate at least that one little, you know, part of this horrible experience. Oh wow! You know, at first, Cuban, when I just saw that you were an avatar, I thought you were holding a ball of hash in your hand and like moving your hands around like a globe. And then I opened it up. I was like, oh snap, that's his dog.
Yeah, man. She's very clingy, so she wants to say hi and stuff. You know.
Wicked.
She's wondering what's up with all this weed I'm breaking up.
Oh snap.
Yeah.
How do you break your weed up? You use your hands. You use a scissors. You got a grinder. What do you do?
I break it up from. This is a strain called mint chocolate chip. My boy X grew it, so it's a cookie pheno, right?
Yeah,
a cookie cross, and it's like hard as a rock. You can't really switch.
Hard as a rock, dude.
Yeah, so I break it up into pieces. You know, I break it down node by node, and then I just grind it.
Grinder.
Yeah, it's faster.
So that's the finger grinder combo.
Yeah, it's a little combo, you know, but I do it like the Jamaicans, man. I just puff to the face. I don't pass my joints, so it's my finger cells I'm smoking. I'm happy with it, you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I never passed joints towards the end either myself. It was really when I went to Jamaica in '95 that ruined me. Because then I just started smoking these like 3 and 4 gram joints with these Lion of Judah rolling papers. And I don't know, I smoked so many joints. I got to this point where even my wife was like, are you even like, do you feel the effects of that? Because I literally would smoke like, 10 of these joints at least a day. Like it was on point with Remo, but I think Remo must be around like 30, 40 because he smokes 10 in like an hour. Like it's unbelievable. Never seen anyone smoke joints like Remo. Except maybe like some of my hardcore Rasta friends that like they smoke nonstop. They always have a joint in their hand, in their mouth, burning. Which is that's pretty legit. That's the love of cannabis right there.
Yeah, it's what pushes me and motivates me through the garden, being able to puff and listen to music, you know what I mean? But I alternate, man. I like smoking blunts because, that's just what I smoked for like 20 plus years as a young adult. But sometimes they get a little annoying, so I do roll my joints. I kind of alternate, depends how I'm feeling. But lately I've been smoking a whole lot more flowers than hash. And as long as I roll like Todd over there, 3.5 grams per spliff, then I'm on it, Smoke it to the head and I'm feeling pretty good.
It's because I like the taste. I don't like the taste of paper, and I just like the taste of a nice fat joint. I've had so many people be like, "Oh, that's so wasteful," but it grows on trees technically, and
it does.
Yeah, literally grows on trees, literally.
People are funny. They see things. It's all perspective, right? Everything's a perspective. It depends on where your perspective lies. That that will sort of almost create the view that you have.
Definitely. I mean, I think that when people start growing cannabis and getting their source to be Mother Nature, like I told a few people that this, and people can tell me what they think, but most of the time when we get jobs, when we're 16, 17, 18, we start to work in the normal world, we can work our ass off, show up on time, bust our ass, and we don't necessarily get rewarded for it. We can ask for a raise, we can, hope that there'll be attention on our good deeds, but when we're gardening, we actually get rewarded instantly. Like Mother Nature is invisible and she's just watching. So if you go make 100 extra plants, you're going to get all that extra energy that you put out, you're going to get back. And it teaches you, or it instills in us, at least in me, it instilled the way that we would work as hard as we could because we knew we would get rewarded. Whereas most people, they would go in and to get a minimum wage, so they do the minimum amount of work. A gardener goes in there and does the most amount of work because they know it's worth it. They're not going to have to wait for permission or wait for somebody to pat them on the back. Mother Nature's just going to straight hook them up. And I think that lesson coming to me at 13, 14, 15 was probably one of life's greatest lessons. And I'd love to know what other people think of that, especially employers who have to deal with a wage to effort ratio.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the reason that I loved it so much, to be able to watch it grow from nothing. Because, of course, when I started growing in the 90s, the early 90s, it was from seed. That's how you grew. You grew from seed. You got seeds. You went to Amsterdam and got seeds. And you were like, yeah, brought your seeds back and planted your seeds and watched them just on a plate with paper towel and was like, look, they're growing. Like, I wonder how many will be females. And that was my introduction to growing cannabis. And it was a beautiful thing to be able to see. I'll say one thing, though. My kids, who have zero interest in it, it's my thing. I have a federal license, so they are exposed to seeing it, plants growing. They've watered them, in fact. What it did inspire in them was they asked me both, hey, would we be able to grow something? And I was like, what do you guys want to grow? And they were like, I don't know, like peppers or tomatoes or like lettuce or, so we got all of these seeds, and I set up a little indoor area with some T5s, and we sprouted all the seeds together, and those seeds are even so much smaller than cannabis seeds. They're kind of trippy to plant some of those things and watch them actually come to life and grow into it. Like sunflowers are classic because they get so fat and thick. It's a kind of a comparison to see that much biomass be produced from a small seed in that short of a time of period. Well, you learn the direct relationship of what you need to do, what you need to give that plant, water and the food, for it to do that, and it definitely opened their eyes to loving growing.
The other little thing I'd like to say is it taught me how to care for something, but not over care for something. You can't put the fans on the little saplings, the little seedlings, and you can't beat them to death with your concern. You gotta let things just kind of go, and it taught me really how to pay attention. I mean, because if I didn't, my plants would just die. Their little silent protest would be, okay, you don't pay attention to me, I die. And you learn how to pay attention. I swear I learned more about how to run my life from growing cannabis because it was practical applications where you had to plan in advance, you had to figure out what nutrients you're going to need, you had to go into it with the right tools if you expected to come out of it with the good results. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%. I do 100% know what you mean.
They just don't teach you that in school, really.
They don't teach you anything really in school. I mean, they should be teaching you that, how to grow and take care of food, what organics is, the science behind what non-organics is, chemical compounds, and how they interact and create synergies, and how they can harm so much more than just in their singular sources than when you stack and pile them up on top of one another, or how to take out a mortgage on a house, or how to be able to pay for your rent and your bills and manage your finances and understand how to save and spend and all of the things that, once again, they do not teach you. But cannabis, for some reason, is like, hey, you know what? I can teach you that too. It's like,
Dude, I joke that my focus was underground economics in school because cannabis taught me all that. It gave me energy. It taught me how to balance budget money. I didn't have a choice. I had to because when I grew cannabis, I suddenly had money because all my friends were tugging on me, going, "Can I get a little bit? Just a little bit. Come on, please, a little bit." There was nothing you could do.
I know. You're either the dick or you were the man. And it was way better when you were with your buddies if you were smoking your weed out of their stash.
Back in the 80s, I could always smell if they had my pot because homegrown was so unique where it had terpenes and you could smell the bag in the pocket, and a lot of the stuff we would get was a bit more processed and
Homegrown. What a wonderful term, right? You're coming out of a time where almost all herb is imported from Colombia, from Mexico, from Thailand, from Jamaica, from all of these different places. Import. And then all of a sudden, yeah, this is homegrown. I swear the first probably 1 or 2 years of homegrown, people were growing like landrace sativas or narrow leaf drug cultivars for Sam and Rob, and just growing leaf and just never understanding why they weren't. These are some sparse motherfuckers.
Yeah, there had to be a reason because that was a pervasive thought through, I mean, the cannabis community, you know. It's rather fascinating how it's been perpetuated that, you know, when I first got into cannabis, that homegrown was a dirty word, you know, and it really blew me away. I was like, wait, I've seen pictures in High Times and homegrown marijuana looks pretty fucking better than this brown shit that I got with these black seeds right here, you know, that I had back.
That was the insult everybody would give me. Oh, it's homegrown. You just got homegrown. Yeah, I heard it all the time, honestly. My retort was always, hey, everything's homegrown if you're in the home it's grown in, okay?
True enough. But really, back then, that was all field pot. The OG pot was field pot. These motherfuckers weren't even growing it in greenhouses. And forget about supplemental light.
You know who I feel bad for, bro? The people out in Florida that get all the outdoor that doesn't move in Cali. Ooh. It gets sent over there and they think it's homegrown and they move it for top dollar prices. Yeah. That's crazy.
Florida's totally that place, though.
It used to be. I came from Florida, right? And I had home grows, you know what I mean? But the work that would get pushed was all indoor. But a lot of the farmers, because of the prohibition, they just started leaving in Mass, you know, to the West Coast or wherever else it was medical. And there was like a deficit of growers, so they all started to import the work from Cali. And I didn't know it at the time. I looked at it and it looked fire, but yeah, when my boy went out there and he saw the work, it was just, you know, not the best work, for sure.
A lot of times when I would go to Hawaii, I would see the same thing. I would feel bad for them because all they had available was like not very good outdoor California, not the best stuff. And it really surprised me that that's the prohibition on the island or in other places, that they just shut you down. And there's no other recourse except dealing with local sheriffs who rule the world.
I just want to say we shouldn't generalize because a lot of it is if you know the right people, you get the right stash. And there was good stuff everywhere. You just had to happen to be in with the people that had the right stuff. So
yes, but at the same time, guarantee the best herb in Cali or BC at the same time in the 90s. It was always going where the dollar dictated, and that dollar was Manhattan. Manhattan paid more than anyone. And so New York had the best weed. It was like literally like Rockstar or like, you know, like fucking the weed that Mark Goldberg, the fucking, you know, these fucking Hollywood stars would have or whatever, like 600 an ounce or more. Like ridiculous.
Can I just add, though, in New York there was a weird mentality where people like to brag about how much their pot cost as if that made it better. I know that sounds weird, but when I see
they paid
600 an ounce, it'd be like, guys, that was just sold for 400 like the rest of the shit, but
or less. It was less than 200 where they were buying it, dude. Less than 200 where they were buying it.
Dude, standard New York wrap is like $800 a jar is what they would say. They'd be like, I'm twisting the lid on how much it cost. And when you grow up listening to that, it really fucks up your brain because you don't know what's value anymore. Because I'm like, I gotta find this $800 a jar shit. It's gonna be sex. It's this concept. I wanted to ask a question. Now, there was another term, like I remember homegrown. Now, when the chronic came out, was that just a fucking made-up term, or is that an actual defined thing, like when there was hydro weed?
Chronic. I don't know.
Chronic was one slang, but then Serious Seeds named it a variety back in 1994, and it was one of their heavy yielders, like 600 grams a meter. So chronic was just a street term, like for weed, you know, but it became an actual strain name.
Welcome, Dana Larson, to the room, and I do agree, Todd. We should try and pass the conversation around like it is a joint. Tony still hasn't said hi. Lola.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. I mean, I'm alive. After reading Jen Doe's story, I feel like it's going better. It's easy to get in the dumps, but then you read some crazy story where people like almost lost their lives and other people did lose their lives, and all of a sudden there sure is context in death. Wow.
Yeah, that was a crazy way to wake up to that story for sure. I'm glad she's okay and stuff.
Yeah, she said she was going to maybe try and come and share some time with us here. She's got to build up her courage. She's feeling a little shook up. What's up, Pops? What's up?
Say something about that. You know, Peter McWilliams and I were going to write a book because he wrote this very famous line of book called Life 101. And when he was getting close to death, he wanted to write a book called Death 101, but we obviously didn't get around to it. But the conversation was about, you know, as cancer patients, two of us talking, you know, there was a certain emancipation that happened when we both focused on the finality of our life, when we focused on the fact that life was very short and fragile and that we were all going to die someday. I almost feel like it was a beautiful lesson to be given as a child, because whereas most people walk through life thinking, oh, it's inevitable, I got tomorrow, I can make this up on another day. When you're focusing on the fact that you're going to die or the party's going to come to an end, you really do have a passion to go around and say I love you to people and to be more forgiving and to look at every second, every breath as much more precious. And you know, that was going to be the gist of Death 101, you know, dying with dignity. But obviously Peter passed away before we could do that project. But I still love the concept.
Well, it also gives your life purpose, and you know, like I always said, you know, once you walk away from the battlefield, the rest is gravy, and it's unfortunately one of those survivor's guilt sort of things where you feel the need to, you either crawl into a hole or you climb out and enjoy life, and it's your choice. We make that choice. So, you know, I fortunately, through seeing the worst and realizing that, you know, I could have died as well. I had 3 heat strokes in the Gulf, and I was medevaced and all kind of other ugly shit that happens during war. But it makes you realize that we're here on this planet, and you can either contribute to sucking off of it, or you can contribute to helping people out and making the world a better place. And I'm thankful people like Jen already have that knowledge, and I hope she's able to continue and to push onward through this very difficult time and find her solace in this plant and this community so she can move forward.
Indeed. So people are actually saying, and this sounds like a real stretch in the chat room here, that Snoop Dogg mispronounced the name hydroponic and called it hydrochronic. Not feeling it myself, but maybe one day someone can ask Snoop rather than read about it on the internet.
Right, but didn't Dre just name the chronic after a slang term for cannabis in LA? I mean, he is a product of his environment, and I mean, not to say that rappers borrow heavily from the influences around them or anything, but I don't think he made up the term. I just think people were calling it. You know, same could be said with marijuana, to be honest. Same could be said with pot. Pot, chronic, marijuana. I mean, when you go back in time, the roots to these are very, very questionable at best.
It was always interesting traveling around the country, rallies and stuff like that, and hearing regional names such as, you know, Chronic in one area, or in Florida it was the Crippy back in the early 90s, and just hearing different slangs for people's understanding, because their only binding situation was the High Times THMQ, which was to look and say, hey, what's the cost of pot in New York? Holy shit, look what they're paying for pot in New York. Jesus Christ, I can't believe they're paying that much for pot in New York. You know, because that was really the only way you knew, you know.
Okay, so I should mention that now that 1,000 people have posted in the chat room that Snoop Dogg himself said that he mispronounced, I still don't believe it. I think he's rewriting history. It sounds suspect to me. Fuck Snoop Dogg. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Man, I swear 100 people wrote, he said it, he said it, Snoop Dogg said it, he said it on his show. I was like, all right, oh my God, I got it. So that was said by Snoop Dogg on his own GGN network.
It's just sometimes I think rappers contradict themselves. Like, I heard a guy in a line go, we smoke endos and sativas, we ain't fucking with no hazes. I'm like, well then what the fuck is a haze? And are you just saying you don't like peppery terps, or is it because it rhymed? There's so many things people just listen to and adopt, and it was the Chronic. No, man, this is hydro. You don't understand. There's all these lines.
The thing is, Horatio, that's like some LA mentality over there, man. They're straight up OG and nothing else, bros. Hayes probably on the bottom of the list to them. And I love Hayes, just saying.
Man, I love Hayes too. It's definitely my favorite. If someone's gonna ask me what my favorite terp profiles are, generally it is those. Although I have to say, Tony, and I just mentioned this a little bit ago, this Master Scout flower rosin with the Jack terps is the most unbelievable taste I've ever tasted. It's candy, bro. It's insane. Only this one, though. I hit it with all these different ones, and it doesn't produce the same synergy that it does with this one, which I'm sorry to say is gone. So gone. So gone.
That's a big statement. What was the hash that you used again? What was that?
It was flower rosin from Master Scout. The taste was unbelievable, dude. It was completely insane. And every person, it was so insane that I gave it away to everyone, that I just hit like 20 people, and then it was like gone. I was like, damn. Puff Wednesday, actually, quite a few people hit it. These one people, like 5 minutes later, were licking their lips. They were like, I can still taste it. It was funny. I'd love to puff it with all of you on the panel right now, because I'm telling you, I do not say that lightly. It was ridiculous. Although, at the same time, I do worry about the potential ramifications of inhaling terpenes with hash. I mean, there's got to be safety protocols in place where we understand what are the safe terpenes and what are the non-safe terpenes for inhaling in larger doses than they are presently available in the hash or the plant matter. Seems like it'll be a good road to take in the near future.
Yeah, I think that I think when you expose the heads, if you will, whether it's in like a rosin, because if you're doing like flower rosin or you're doing hash rosin, you'll notice when you expose those heads, some of the terpenes are lost in that process. Some of them feel like they're tougher, like stronger on the nose, but maybe not so much in the taste. And those become volatile as well if you're trapping them in another state. So if they are like being preserved in an alcohol or being preserved in a solvent or even in water, they will also have phenols and different types of terpenes that are like phenols that can be toxic if you don't know about them and don't know how to release them and how to get them out of there. Not a lot of studies on it. I've looked for it, and part of the big reason why I was interested in terpenes because in a sublingual it works. It seems to accelerate and work a lot faster when we added like 1% terpenes to the sublingual. You know, so if you're in a 1 to 3% range, that seems to be producing a lot more effectiveness with the medicine. So the obvious next step would be to try to take that into some kind of clinical or some kind of research study, observational study or something. So that's like actually the next thing I was going to do and work on was getting a university behind it and getting some testing behind it.
It's a good idea for sure. I like that idea. It's you know, as we are, I've been playing around a little bit, and I can't remember which one it was, but one of them definitely, the way it touched my nose and the way I couldn't stop smelling it for such a long time, but it wasn't like a good kind of, like it was kind of like I just wanted it to go away, and it was like this terpene that was present that was just, it seemed like my spider sense said, don't inhale that. It didn't give the right effects, like, at least for my particular system. And I can't really remember which one it is because I've just literally been consuming the jack until it's gone. I'll be rubbing the inside of the jar soon. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that one is a really popular one. Anything with the lemons is really good. A lot of the OG.
I've actually been hit up in Oregon by a bunch of people that haven't heard I left Harborside, and all of them have mentioned how good that Jack Frost is and wanted more of it. So, kudos to you, buddy.
Yeah, I agree. Some of these, some strains and some things, they really need a lot of it needs to be researched, you know. And like anything, if something doesn't sit right with you and it sits right with someone else, it's just really kind of character dependent. But it should be interesting because the whole point of trying to take the cannabinoids out of it so it doesn't have any detected is really important, because then universities have opened up, and I've reached out to them, have opened up to wanting to do those observationals and things. So now you could, since there's not THC present, there's not cannabinoids, and it's just like studying anything, you know, like a buckwheat.
Adam from West Coast Concentrate is like, he's like, I know. He said, I'll get you more of that flower rosin. We'd love to have more people try the greatest taste ever. I was like, that shit was so tasty. He's like, man, I know. It might have ruined dabs for me for a while. Nothing is going to taste that good again. When I gave it to them, that's the video that I sent you. Oh, no, that was actually the GG4. That wasn't the Jack. Anyway, good fun. Nice to see some chemists maybe get on the ball and start doing research with the terpenes and find out. I mean, obviously, terpenes are essential oils, and essential oils are, you know, at least not directly inhaled, but definitely put into the air for inhaling. You can smell essential oils when they burn in those little, you know, essential oil burners or diffusers or nebulizers, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're using. So, you got to think there's some guys out there that have been doing pretty heavy work with terpenes and terpenoids. You know, some authors, some chemists. It'd be great to get in touch with those guys and be like, what's going on with this? Is this something we should be doing? It sure feels like it when you modulate your high and it uplifts it to the most positive, intense, like, this is amazing. It's like, it's hard to be like, how can this be bad?
It's almost like, so the thing is, it's almost like the terpenes are the script for the actors. The actors are the cannabinoids, THC, CBD, what have you.
Yeah,
and
good. That's a good analogy.
You know what I mean? And so what happens is when you smoke pure terpenes, you go, it's almost like it's mimicking the expression of that strain that you're smoking, because it's coming from flowers. So a lot of people think that it's coming from hash or something, but it's coming from whole plant flowers. So that's one important aspect, I think, because if you're taking terpenes from something that's been extracted with a hydrocarbon or extracted with an alcohol, and then you're trying to remove them after they've been through a process, or they're in a hash or they're in an oil, it changes it completely. So taking that from flowers in its full spectrum, what I notice is it seems to give you the expression or that feeling of the strain without this like psychoactive high. And since our bodies produce cannabinoids naturally, it's almost like it's amplifying the receptors in how it's absorbing those cannabinoids. So smaller amounts of THC with higher amounts of terpenes seems to create a completely different feeling. And it's not like super, I don't even know how to explain it, you know, except that way. That's what I've noticed with it.
I liked Horatio's original analogy, which was the gas and the direction, but I think the actors in the script is is a little more multidimensional in the sense that it really is. Once you start using them, too, once you start because I don't hit every hit with a terp, that's for sure, but I sure do find that when I do, there's this like just uplifting. That's what everyone kind of says. It's like an uplifting. It's that aromatherapy aspect. I remember when I started the Melting Point in 2002, I had the inhalation station of vaporization, and that was in order to normalize the use of vaporizers without showing them or doing it with cannabis. People were able to come into the shop and use their own cannabis because at that time Canada had a federal law, and it was certainly not within my rights to ask people if they were legally allowed to consume cannabis. If they came into my shop and pulled cannabis out, I allowed them to use any of the half dozen vaporizers that I had on display. But to further normalize it, I went and bought like a dozen or more herbs that we would vaporize with people when they came up to the counter. And so it was quite a lesson in how, especially when we got to the extracts, because we eventually built up. One time a guy came in and we were vaping mint and lavender and chamomile, and rose hips got my manager completely fried. Like his eyes were red and he was all like, wow, that was unbelievable. Vaporizing all these different herbs. And this guy came in and he had, oh, I have this really high-end peppermint extract. And not peppermints, mint, just mint extract. He dropped like half a drop of this shit onto some mint that we had in the volcano, and we filled this bag up, and I'm telling you, it was the most uplifting, just the same way when someone goes and smells it and gets that little lift. That's like a multi-billion-dollar industry, the aromatherapy industry, that's based on that very thing, our olfactory senses and how we receive those smells in our brain. And it's an incredible way to remember things, to like imprint memory through those smells. And I'll tell you, when we hit that mint oil, there was about 6 or 7 of us, and we were literally all floating like, that was amazing. It reminds me very, 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 very much of hitting the terps. And that was a pure mint extract, which is also mint secretes its essential oils in glandular trichomes. Very much the same way as cannabis. So it didn't really surprise me that these terpenes are also uplifting in that sense.
Okay, so can I add some chemistry? So you're asking for a chemist, right?
Absolutely.
You guys got one, man. Yo, here I am. What do you need to know? I've been working with terpenes for almost 20 years in my life, okay? So I think it qualifies me as an expert. I would certainly say that a lot of the things that sometimes are mentioned, when we had discussed this, I think it was maybe about 6 months ago on Hash Church, I had followed up with a post on the Facebook page that had 5 different references on what's known with mostly terpenoids and cannabinoids and how they work together. And most notably is the fact that beta-caryophyllene, which is a highly predominant sesquiterpene found in most strains of cannabis, is a CB2 agonist. So an agonist is something that fits into the receptor and turns on the receptor. An antagonist fits in the receptor and turns it off. So it acts just like CBD. So you would expect also any other effects like the upregulation of those receptors, which occurs because terpenes basically increase the fluidity in the cell, meaning that they open up the cell for business. I think I used this analogy exactly on Hash Church about 6 months ago. It basically starts exchanging things between inside and outside of the cell. And so what has been known is that that can result in an upregulation of the expression of the cannabinoid receptors that are responsible for the effects that we see with cannabinoids. So there's a direct impact that, you know, terpenes are having on upregulation of the receptors that cannabinoids are binding to, and so that could again be one of the mechanisms that underpins the ensemble effect or the entourage effect. So again, that was part of that one post that was on Facebook where we talked about all those different mechanisms, and one of them again is that these things bind to the same mechanisms, or they have the same mechanisms that when they end up binding increase all kinds of biological effects that we just don't really fully understand just yet. So Mark, you were saying that tingling that you feel in your nose, I think what that is you've overloaded a lot of membranes in the cells in those tissues with all kinds of stuff that I think it's mostly a dose dependent thing, that if you did that at a much lower dose you wouldn't feel that effect. So again, you got to remember that terpenes and the terpene ratios that are found in cannabinoids or that's found in cannabis extracts are very, very small, and so doing a much higher dose of terpenes is giving you a much higher dose, probably an order of magnitude. I don't know exactly how much, but it seems like you're getting a much, much larger dose of terpenes than originally intended, and that's one of the reasons why you might be feeling or having some of these effects. But in general,
I got it from one batch though, and I wish I remembered which one it was because the other ones don't do that to me. And I should say this, my olfactory is off the charts. I smell shit that people do not smell.
yeah, you'd be a good chemist then, because you need a good sniffer as a chemist. I mean, it's one of the things I rely on to differentiate different materials. But I just want to go back to one other point, is that, you know, terpenes, a lot of terpenes, it depends on the dose of the terpenes. A lot of terpenes can be irritants, and I know that Horatio and I have discussed this too, especially with the exposure to limonene. Limonene could be a severe irritant, and it all depends on the dose that you're getting it at. A much lower dose, it's not an irritant at all, but these are the kinds of things, again, that I think that has to be worked out scientifically. So there's an old saying is that the doses, the poison is in the dose. It really matters how much of these things you're getting at any one particular time, whether you're going to feel an adverse reaction or a tingling in your nose or just something that is just, you know, way overload. But in general, terpenes interact with cells to intercalate into the lipid bilayer, which just basically increases the flux of all kinds of things in and out of the cells. And one of the ramifications of that is the upregulation of the cannabinoid receptor expression, which is why you see this enhanced effect.
I just posted a link, a fragrant introduction to terpenoid chemistry by Charles S. Sell, for anyone that wants to Google that. It's a fairly expensive book, but it covers, like, you know, basically the basic the foundation for the chemistry of higher terpenoids. It says the biogenesis of terpenoids, some of the history, and it's worth checking out. It's $120, but I suspect that that is a pretty decent book to get your head around the, you know, what's going on, what Mark is talking about.
To back up what Mark is talking about, remember Mark Richards, when I showed you the limonene and I showed you the orange stuff that was in the clear stuff, that one of the categories of things that can go off in terpenes, and it's just built in, is they form peroxides, and it's peroxidase. I can't say it right. Peroxidization that then starts to turn them red.
Hydroperoxide. So yeah, it reacts with oxygen in the air to make a what's called a hydroperoxide, and those hydroperoxides, and sometimes actually with limonene, you can make what's called an endoperoxide. So the endoperoxide and the hydroperoxide, yes, are not things that you want to be inhaling deep into your lungs. Absolutely not. Or any exposure to biological tissue is a bad thing of those materials. Yes.
Interesting.
So going back to that, is that like terpenes going rancid, going off, or just being kept improperly that they degrade, or is it just by strain?
Yeah, well, I mean, that one in particular is one that I would only be really concerned about if it were in a high concentration. I think if it's in very small concentration, I really wouldn't be worried about it. And I have no idea, Horatio, what happens when you hit that at nail temperature. At nail temperature, everything changes. My God. Most hydroperoxides aren't going to be thermally stable, and they will decompose. The hydroperoxide decomposition route that is of some concern in hash is the fact that when fatty acid, okay, so the envelope that the trichome exists in is basically a lipid bilayer, and the lipids are made out of these unsaturated fatty acids. And when unsaturated fatty acids are heated at like nail temperature, they do decompose in air and through a hydroperoxide type mechanism. And I think the degradation products ultimately out of those are aldehydes, and that was that scare about a month ago that was on the internet that saying that, you know, everything that's got aldehydes in it because it's got, you know, oh, if you have a vegetable oil and you heat it up at this ungodly temperature and you oxidize the hell out of it, you make an aldehyde, so therefore all fried foods are bad because when you heat up this fatty acid, you're going to decompose it to this aldehyde. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of crap out there, but the bottom line is that I think in hash, with a lot of these compounds that aren't stable to air, especially when you heat them up on the nail, they're just going to do a myriad of different things, regardless of the terpenes that are in the plant or in your profile of your live resin. As soon as you put it on the nail, you have a completely different profile of compounds. That doesn't answer your question, does it, Horatio?
Well, you have that. You also have that with anything you put on the nail. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, everything's. I had a chemistry professor who used to say we should have a chemistry textbook called Chemistry at 200 degrees because God knows it's just different in chemistry at room temperature. Things just happen at elevated temperature because you're pushing all kinds of molecules up hills that they would normally go up, and where they land is not necessarily where they started.
Well, I mean, even if I because I've obviously done terrible things to myself. If I take those 3 jars, the limonene you can buy, the thing I remove, and then the final product I make, at the same micro amount, they have completely different profiles of harshness. Like, one is a death sentence. That's kind of why I'm like, it only takes a micro amount to go off within the whole, that once it's vaporized, that's where that harshness can probably manifest itself, is you've got a strain that is literally chemically reacting with itself now that it's lost. It's balanced within the heads. It's become soup, and now the soup is reacting, and if the wrong amount of air is present, those peroxides form, and that's when hitting it on the nails can become dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, you could keep peroxides from forming by just keeping it a little wet. If it stays wet, I mean, it has to sort of be dry for peroxides to form. But the thing is if you're vaporizing at a high temperature, you have to assume that you're beyond the boiling point of water and that there's no water available at that particular point. And all you're really doing is accelerating thermooxidative degradation to sometimes pretty noxious materials. But you're right, so taste and color and those kinds of things, bulk properties of materials, can really be very, very different with very, very small amounts of degradation products. It only takes a small amount of a very noxious degradation product to essentially make a whole batch taste not like it should.
that's kind of the big thing I learned with limonene is humans have a sensitivity in the parts per billions to that microaldehyde, and if it's not removed, you don't even have a chance of making something like LHO.
Yep.
L to the H to the O. Hash Church 62. 724 people watching us yammer on. How fun is that? Let's smoke. D420K was here, he'd say, bong rip. I'm certain of it. I am certain of it.
Yeah, where's the Bong Rip mascot?
Oh, I think he's on the road today. I think he's on the road today, traveling. Been spending lots of time in Vancouver lately, so that's been nice to be able to see him and go hang out. Went and saw him for Puff Wednesday the other day, just at the end, where we ordered the nasty deep fried Mars bar. How healthy is that, Mark? Is that good for you?
No, that's not good at all. But yeah, it's amazing what they deep fry these days, right? Like deep fried Twinkies and deep fried all kinds of deep fried shit. I seen deep fried butter at the Maryland State Fair. I'd never seen it before, but they take butter, they take frozen butter, they like freeze it in liquid nitrogen so it's really cold and really hard, and they like roll it in flour and dough and all kinds of shit, and they deep fry that motherfucker. Deep fried butter, man.
That's fucked up. That is fucked up. I'm not sure I'd be dipping into the deep fried butter. Todd's thinking about it.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Wow.
Try to tell that to a bunch of rednecks.
True enough. Speaking of redneckery, man, what an amazing time I had on the mountain the other day. We set it to ourselves while we were out there, 7 bowls deep, like literally like over a mountain into a bowl, over a mountain into a bowl, over a mountain into a bowl, and continuing on. And some of the climbs are so gnarly that it's like you get stuck. You use a lot of your energy, and it's like when you finally get to the top, you know, and it's basically like we have to turn around right now, and it's still going to be pitch black when we get back to the vehicle. I don't know what it is about that sort of threat to your very safety or your mortality, but it makes you enjoy life better. And I'll tell you, when you're hanging out with your friends and it's all just a given that if anything goes down, you're going to help save their lives or vice versa, it is a good feeling. It's a good bonding experience. I definitely suggest people, if you have the ability to, get out into nature, you know? Whether for a hike or a mountain bike or a dirt bike or a sled ride or a snowboard or a ski or a whatever, man, and you have the ability, get out and walk around and be in the trees, be in nature. There's something seriously amazing about it, and I don't think it's only because mostly other people aren't there. That's a part of it, but you got your small little crew and you get out there and it's just feeds my soul, I'll tell you. It feeds my soul.
That's what live music does for me. I mean, I could see just about any form of music, whether it's classical or bluegrass, which I love, or jazz. If I'm watching music, if I'm watching another musician play, even if it's just a young piano student, I get off on it because the musical mind is an incredible mind.
Yeah.
And music nourishes my soul like the outdoor nourishes yours, Mark.
I agree. Music also nourishes my soul in a very similar way. The outdoors just helps nourish my body simultaneously, and it's amazing. I push myself beyond my limits. I mean, I have done that at shows as well, pushed myself beyond humanly possible. But I'll tell you, when you're lugging around a 350-pound machine in deep powdery snow, and you're getting stuck, and you're having to flip it and turn it and flip it right around, and it's just unbelievable how much energy you lose. And sometimes at the end of the day, when I'm coming back, my hand will just want to close. I'll be like, no, just stay open for a little while longer. You get like the claw. Hurts. You know what? I ruined shows for myself too, Mark, in the sense that back around 95, I started taping. Once I got my DAT recorder, and my first show I ever taped was actually in Missoula, Montana. It was a fish show. And from then on, I would go on to tape, record, tape. It was a DAT recorder, so it was putting them all on tape. And I still have my masters. You know, some of my best live shows I've ever been to, I recorded. So it's, aside from people coming up to me and going, "Is that a mic? Is that a microphone? Wow, dude, are you taping the show, dude? Oh, man, I'd love to get a copy of that show, bro." It's like, fuck.
Ooh, taper section foul right there, right?
Yeah, well, there is no taper section at the majority of the shows I was taping. Like, sure, if it was the Allman Brothers or, you know, Fish or String Cheese or a few other bands back then, there was a taper section. But everyone else, like MMW and Charlie Hunter and all these other great musicians, they had no taper section. They didn't even want you bringing it in.
Oh yeah, it was all stealth taping. Yeah, I'm so old that I go back to stealth taping with the Grateful Dead before they allowed it, and we used to have to sneak our mics and our tape deck in the late '70s and early '80s. They only started allowing taping section in '84. In Berkeley Community Theater show was the first time they allowed taping. But yeah, I mean it used to have to sneak everything in.
Wow.
And all the Garcia band stuff, they never allowed tape. There was never a taping section for Jerry Garcia band. So if you have some tasty bootlegs of that, those were all made on the down low.
On the down low, the Jerry band. Some of my favorite bootlegs were the Jerry band with Merle Saunders.
Oh yeah, there's some great stuff that's out there. Legion of Mary stuff from like '74 that's just absolutely ripping. Awesome stuff. Such a great rich vault of music.
I recorded not Hussein, but Zakir Hussein.
Yeah, the percussionist, right?
Yeah, with like all these other, like the most famous flute guy and the fucking throat singer and like the crazy Ravi Shankar. Like, it was just the most ridiculous thing, and it was actually one of the first times I ever really was brought to tears by music. I couldn't believe it. It was insane, and I taped it. I have the master tape of that show.
Yeah, if you're not seeing music that brings you to tears, you ought to be seeing some better music.
Man, I'll tell you, that was insane. I used to go to the Montreal Jazz Festival every year. For Canada, when you can't get into the, you know, if you're not able to get into the U.S., the big thing was go to the Montreal Jazz Festival. There's literally like 1,000 concerts in a 12-day period. It's just like dozens of venues all over the city, awesome. 3 venues outside. It's just so ridiculous.
They close the streets. It's just awesome. It's a great. I've only been there once, Mark, and we had such a great time. Saw incredible stuff. Saw the James Carter Quintet there. It was just unbelievable. But yeah, they closed the streets.
Was his sister there? Was Regina there?
Say that again?
What year were you there? Because I would have been at that.
Yeah, I was there. We were there. I'd have to think. We were there like about 3 or 4 years ago on July 4th weekend.
Oh, okay. No,
specifically to see the James Carter, because James Carter was playing up there. If those of you who don't know jazz and don't know James Carter, he's one of the most incredible sax players that's on the planet today. You should know about James Carter. He's incredible. And
I recorded him like back in like 2002 or 2003. It's actually when I met him. I was staying at the same hotel, and I ended up in an elevator with him. That's how I met him.
Nice.
If you stay at the Hotel Wyndham, this was gold back in the day, Mark. All the musicians stay there, and they do an open stage every night. Whoever's around just goes. And that was the first time I saw him with his sister, who plays violin, Regina Carter.
Okay.
Him and her together are unbelievable, and also just, I can't remember who else was there, but it was absurd. It was like Ray Charles on piano, and like, you know what I mean? Just like the most unbelievable musicians just in this little bar, and you couldn't get into it unless you had a ticket or a card to get into the hotel. So that was the trick. Hotel Wyndham in Montreal, you have to go in, get in an elevator, and then go up to get to the main floor where everyone is. There's nothing on the bottom. You have to have your card to get up that elevator. So that was worth paying for back in the day. Jazz and cannabis, like what? Come on, that's like peanut butter and jelly right there. Jazz and cannabis. Now there's a history. Too bad we couldn't get some of those old school guys to come on.
Hey, I got something to talk about.
I thank you, Dana. I thank you.
It's been an interesting couple of days in BC for cannabis dispensaries with a raid in Seashell yesterday or the day before of the S&M sweet shop. They were selling cannabis food products, and they got raided and had their van seized and all their money and product taken. And in Mission, there's the BC Pain Society, got raided a couple of days ago, and they've been shut down. They might reopen, I don't know, but they're having a hard time anyways. You might have heard about 2 weeks ago in Nanaimo, a cop went around to, there's 10 dispensaries in Nanaimo. One cop went around with this sort of personally written letter he had done and warned them all they had 1 week to shut down or they were going to get raided. It's been 2 weeks, nothing's happened, but doesn't mean it's not gonna. And in Vernon, where there's several dispensaries, including I think one run by the former mayor of Vernon, the cops just went to all of them and gave them a warning and said, you've got some time or we're going to come and shut you down as well. And so it's interesting seeing this pushback happening. But at the same time, there are a lot of dispensaries and a lot of towns in BC that have been doing the other thing and have been saying we're going to let this place continue to operate or we're going to give them a license and we're going to tell the police to stand down. So it's an interesting time right now in BC and ultimately across Canada. There's at least 10 new dispensaries that have opened in Toronto in the last couple of weeks, and I expect there's going to be dozens and dozens more there. And I'm certainly encouraging people to get more of these places open now so that we are here making legalization happen the way we want to see it happen rather than waiting for Trudeau and the government to make legalization happen the way they want to see it happen, which is likely a very different model. But just a little update there anyways, because that's been more raids in BC days we've had in quite a while. Of course, there's a lot more dispensaries to raid, of course, but it's interesting times, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty surprised to hear that. It seems like weren't we supposed to be getting a better situation here, like one that starts with not raiding people?
Yeah, and the mayors are all, some mayors do the right thing and telling their police forces to stand down and saying that they are going to license these places and support them, and other ones are like, the laws, we can't do anything, and we support the RCMP, but it makes a difference when people get on the phone and call your government. And I know that in Colorado and California, across the U.S., where you get state governments that legalize it, and some of an initiative referendum, still a lot of cities end up defying it and saying we're not going to allow it in our town, and license them appropriately, and government's really the place that listens to people the most, your local mayor and council, and that can often have the biggest how these things play out.
Well, that's not good to hear. Not good to hear at all. I do appreciate the fact that the photo of yourself in the background looks like you're wearing the same shirt as you're wearing in the foreground. So that's
shirt, but it's definitely a similar color. I like that. I feel like Stephen Colbert there with my painting of myself behind myself.
Right on, dude. Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, even though it's not the best initial news. It's good to let people know what they can do.
It reminds me of the 90s, when everybody was opening hemp shops and head shops across Canada, and they were getting raided as well. And people were going to jail for the weekend for running a head shop, and people were getting fined and then having quite some harsh stuff. One guy in Ontario spent several weeks in jail violating his bail by going back to his head shop after it got raided, and he ended up going to jail for quite. They were raiding stores on a regular basis, and they were shutting down, and head shops still get raided in Canada. As you well know, bongs and pipes and all this stuff is still illegal in Canada. They just don't enforce it much anymore. But at least once a year, 2 or 3 head shops will get raided somewhere across the country, and people will go out of business and lose their investment and all this stuff. And so I want to see dispensaries the same way, where most people don't even realize they're illegal because there's so many around, and because we've just defeated the police once again with another civil disobedience tactic. And so I'm still encouraging people to open dispensaries. I think it's time. Some of us will get picked off as we go over the hill, or we'll get raided, but I hope that these guys that are being raided will end up reopening as well and continuing to push forward. Because the way the law stands in Canada right now, we're really facing severe loss of liberty for getting busted for running a medical marijuana outlet. You're going to lose your money. You're going to lose your investment. You can lose your weed. You can have to pay a lawyer and go to court and all those things. You may not be able to go to the U.S. anymore. Those are the realistic things, but you're not going to jail. So if you're willing to face those kind of risks and you believe in what you're doing, then I think it's never been a better time to open a dispensary. Even though some of them are having problems, a lot more are being successful, and a lot of towns are saying they support this stuff. So it's an interesting time to be coming over the top here, and our civil disobedience is what has gotten us this far. It's great what Trudeau's saying about legalization, but politicians have been following us, not leading us on this. I don't want to wait for Trudeau to do something. I want to do it ourselves and let them, react to it or formalize what we've already done.
Who funds the enforcement agency in Canada? I mean, is there a Cole memorandum type approach that you can take by cutting off the funding of these law enforcement agencies to prosecute, or to basically?
I'll tell you, we have policing. Sorry, Canadian is weird, but we have a police force, the RCMP, the provincial police, because policing is a provincial jurisdiction, and so the province with this federal force. I actually led a referendum in BC where we wrote a law that would have defunded the police from making any possessions or small-scale charges of cannabis. We didn't get enough signatures because it's brutally difficult in BC, but it could be done that way, and we should be putting pressure on provincial and governments, because a lot of cities have their own police forces, like Vancouver. That allows the mayor to have an even bigger influence over what the police do and happen, and why Vancouver is a good city in that regard. But the RCMP definitely respond to local pressure as well, because there's a lot of cities where the mayor and county, we support dispensaries, we're going to license them, and in none of those cities, police said, we don't care, we're going to raid it anyways. Like, there's never been a city where the police have defied their local mayor. They have the right to do so. The mayor can't tell the police not to raid somebody because he's my friend or whatever, but they have a big influence, and every city where the mayor has said, we like dispensaries, the police have stood down. And so it has a huge thing. And if the province, hey, legalization is coming, let's stop wasting money on a bunch of charges that are all going to get dropped in 6 months anyways, let's just implement decriminalization now while we're waiting, that would be huge. And provinces should do that, but getting them to do it is hard, because they're all, if they talk about legalization now, mostly they're talking about sell it in liquor stores and make a lot of money off it. That's been the premiers in Canada that have talked about this and been willing to discuss legalization, and not BC's premier won't pot, says she's waiting for the federal government, she's not going to on it, or really doesn't want to discuss it. But like in Manitoba, they were saying, well, we could sell it in liquor stores and make a lot of money that way, and the liquor store union or the liquor employee like that, because it would give them a lot of new work and everything. But, I'm against that, but it's not where I really want marijuana to be sold in a store. But we'll take that if that's what's coming. But there's better of selling this safe substance and putting it next to this dangerous substance, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's not good to hear. It's not good to see that they're doing that. I just can't really believe it. But at the same time, as it grows and grows and grows, and more people are like, let's open a dispensary, and you get like hundreds of dispensaries, I mean, you got to think that some of them are going to potentially...
they're opening faster than they're being shut down. So they're picking off some of us. It's like we're going over the hill, and then like some of them are getting picked off, but we're gonna make it to the other side, and we're gonna win. And it's just like head shops in the 90s. They were getting raided all the time. Mark went to jail a few times, like and stuff for selling bongs and pipes, and now they sell them at Petro-Canada stations, right? So it's coming.
Yeah, Mark's gone to jail for like selling pipes, selling seeds, passing joints.
He's got a criminal record for promoting vaporizers. That's one of the convictions that he got, was promoting vaporizers, which is still against the law in Canada, right? Like, these laws are still on the books. They're just not really enforced anymore. except if you're in a small town in the north or you've got an asshole local cop or something. But Canada has a lot of laws. Comic books are law in Canada too. Any comic, any illustrated book that is about committing a crime is against the law, and it's like a crime comic, anti-crime comic law is what it's called, and like under that law, Batman comics and stuff are against the law because they're about people committing crimes, right? And that's why they were written. This law was written in the 30s to ban comic books like that. They thought that comic books and superheroes were turning kids gay and making them crazy and stuff, and so they tried to ban them. And I guess it was in the 50s actually where they tried to ban comic books. And won't get into the whole thing, but the comic code came around then, and comics changed quite a bit, and a lot of the old horror comics and stuff stopped publishing. And those laws are still there, and cops still try to enforce that against marijuana stuff sometimes too. They said our Cannabis Culture magazine was a crime comic in the 90s, and had to stop it in one town.
Well, can I ask you, Dana, when I first met you, it was when you first got the job as editor-in-chief going way back when it was Cannabis Culture, when it wasn't Cannabis Culture, it was Cannabis Canada, right? Yeah. And my question is when I first got involved in this, I remember being told that literature like High Times was prohibited for distribution in Canada. So when did you get the ability to, which blows my mind, I mean, this is how deep, and this is both a beautiful way to look at your progress in Canada in the past 25 years, to go from not being allowed to have literature to being like, we're overgrowing them, it's beautiful. But I was wondering, did you get the ability to get like High Times?
It was Mark and other people breaking the law that did it, because that law is still on the books. It was passed by Brian Mulroney in the 80s, and it's section 462.2 of the Criminal Code, and it bans literature and paraphernalia for illicit drug use. And it defines literature as including movies and anything, any kind of media is included in that. And after they passed that law, they raided hundreds of head shops, and thousands more shut down across Canada, and there was a big pushback. And for about 8 or 9 years, there was nothing really available. And then in the mid-90s, Mark opened up Hemp BC. A few people had head shops here and there, but Mark did it in a really big way. He started doing wholesaling, and he got raided for selling bongs and pipes. Just before that, when we were just getting started, a guy in Ontario who had Normal Canada, and the police, he was giving out flyers about legalization. The police raided him, took all his flyers, took his membership list, and charged him under 462.2 with promoting marijuana. And they dropped the charges, but then he went to court and sued them, and Mark helped paid for the case, and he won in the lower court. The judge struck down the law. But the federal government never appealed it to a higher court because they knew they were going to lose. So this law, even the literature law, is actually still on the books. It's very unconstitutional and would be easily defeated if they ever charged anybody. But because it never went to the Supreme Court of Canada, it never set a precedent. So technically that law is still on the books in Canada. Even the literature law is. But people just stopped caring. We started carrying this stuff. And when Mark would get charged for selling bongs, they charged him several times for selling bongs and pipes, the courts would give him a $1,000 fine or $2,000 fine. So it was nothing. And the effort involved was very great. There was a huge pushback. We would all protest. It would take dozens of cops, shut down the whole block. So they just stopped doing it because it was too much hassle, and Mark wasn't stopping. And other people getting charged across Canada, they weren't stopping either. So the police basically gave up, and the courts gave up because the penalties weren't severe enough to threaten anybody to stop doing it. But head shops still get raided in Canada. Earlier this year, 2 shops in a small town area got busted, and they got charged. The one guy's pressure him to take a deal, but people still get charged and for selling bongs in Canada. But once a year in a small town, some cop will do it. But by and large, they just ignore that law. And so the laws in Canada are more severe now than they've ever been in terms of mandatory minimums for growing small numbers of plants and trafficking in small quantities. But at the same time, culture is more free than ever before because we've just been defying all these laws, opening dispensaries. Like I qualified for a couple of years, mandatory minimum jail sentence for my dispensary, as does everyone else in Vancouver. It's like real time. If they were to convict us, we'd be behind bars for a couple of years as a mandatory. But it's likely the court would strike that law down because no one's been charging a dispensary under that. So it's a weird gray area situation in Canada, and it's been getting a lighter shade of gray for a long time, but it's all through civil disobedience. The laws themselves are the same as they were when we started Cannabis Canada magazine. It's still illegal. It's just nobody really knows or cares anymore. So there you go. Civil disobedience is how we're doing it in Canada.
Well, thanks for that, Dana. I remember when you and I met was in '94. You were there for the first Cannabis Cup, right?
Yep.
Was '94 your first cup or '95?
I have probably '95. Yeah, I think '95 Cup. I don't think I went to the. I wasn't with '94.
All right, then that '95 was the first year I met Mark. Right, and that was when it was Cannabis Canada.
Yeah, we actually on in hemp newsletter for the very first little bit, then Cannabis Canada, and then we were trying to sell copies in the U.S. and Americans weren't really sure what cannabis was and didn't want to buy something from Canada. So it was primarily to tap into the U.S. audience that we switched to cannabis culture.
I think it's beautiful what you did, to realize that it was your instigation and perseverance in selling selling the literature, like literally just getting the information out there. I mean, the prohibitionists were so paranoid about what the truth represented that they were literally trying to keep the people from being able to read about it, learn about it, understand what was really going on. I mean, it's that deep. I mean, the greatest contribution I think Jack Herrera made to this whole movement was when a reporter called him on the World War II tape Hemp for Victory and said that it was a fake and a phony because he'd called the Library of Congress and he couldn't get a registry for it, and because of that he said this film's never been made by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, you're lying. So Jack flipped and went to D.C. and went to the Library of Congress and went through what the microfiche was and couldn't find it and was really disgusted and walked back outside and was getting high. And someone else there actually asked, well, what would we have done if we'd come here in like 1941 or 2? And they went back in and asked, do you have books? And they said, we do. And that's where Jack found the 2 entries of Hemp for Victory, black and white, Department of Agriculture. And then he had to photocopy it in their presence and then resubmit it to the fucking Library of Congress so they would re-add Hemp for Victory 14-minute, agricultural fucking product of this into their own library, because somehow when they were categorizing everything, they purged this. And it's really amazing for me to think that, Jack was able to go back and catch them on their slipping. And when you think about how far it goes in Canada, that you weren't even allowed to have literature, really up through the 80s. Things like Sensimilia tips, High Times, Mel Frank books, all fucking illegal. Get you in as much trouble for distributing the information as it would now we're fighting for the plant rights. Like, how crazy is that? I hope people really realize it, is what I guess I'm saying.
I've been working on a cannabis history of Canada for, well, probably for 20 years now, but especially the last couple of years quite a bit, and it's actually coming back from the printer on Tuesday. And while I was doing this book, I really could see in the newspaper clippings how they would lie about stuff and change things over the decades. In Canada, in the early 1900s, there was a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment on the West Coast, and a lot of single Chinese men that had come here to work on the railways and work in the gold mines and that, and were a labor threat to the white unions, and they preferred smoking opium to drinking alcohol primarily. And there was a lot of anti-Asian riots, and there was anti-Asian groups, and the Chinese Exclusion League, and all these groups that would go into Chinatown and beat people up and cause riots. And the ban on opium happened because they wanted to get rid of the Chinese people, and so they banned opium to export or to kick Chinese out of the country. And then I read in the papers like 30 years later in the 1930s, and they talk about these riots that were opium addicts that were rioting in Vancouver, and that's why they had to ban opium, because the opium addicts were rioting. But that wasn't what was happening. It was white racists rioting against Chinese people, and how they changed history, and these examples of how the media, like, I can read the original stuff and I can read what they're saying later, and they're lying about it or getting it wrong or whatever. See the same kind of things repeated. And we also see in the media so much now about how it's a crazy new marijuana product, this oil or these dabs or hash or whatever it is, and all these things have been around for so long. And you can see in the media in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, they're talking about the same crazy new products that are out there and the same stuff. And you can even see references to like the healing, like the anti-cancer stuff, 60s and 70s. There's research and clippings talking about the anti-cancer benefits of cannabis and research being done. And it's still the same kind of stories now, like 40 years later or 50 years later, where they're still saying, well, we're just preliminary research, and we got to do a lot more work still, and we don't really know. And it's bizarre sort of seeing how this stuff gets repeated over and over again and kind of purposely forgotten and ignored and then brought up again as if it's something new and strange. And I don't know, but I'm looking forward to getting this history book out there, and I think Americans might find it fun too to read about what happened in Canada, because our story's quite a bit different than the American one, and certainly Canadians know a lot more about American history, probably just in general, but you know, our pot activists know a lot more about American history than Canadian, because it hasn't really been put out there before. And I'm excited about this book because I think it'll help to change a lot of that and to teach Canadians about our own cannabis history, both hemp and marijuana and activism and punishments and all the different that happened over the last 400 plus years of hemp history in Canada.
400 years.
Hash Church, there's, you know, a good part of the book is the modern activism and people that are shaping the cannabis culture. And there's a page on Mark, and I talk about the Hash Church in there a little bit. So I try to keep it, you know, it's a good guide for people who don't know a lot about the cannabis culture to find out about it. And for those of us that are part of it, I think it'll be a good learning experience as well.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Me too.
So Cuban, how about those photos? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Holmes. Let me see if I can unmute you. I don't have you muted. Huh. Oh, it's a bug. It's a bug. I was asking him about the photos that I took in Jamaica of that Kimbo Kush dry sift, which was just
Nice.
Yes, perfect timing, which was just nice. That was awesome.
Yeah, for some reason, it kept this. That's the second time that when I get muted or I mute myself, I can't unmute myself. It's weird. But yeah, I really appreciate those pictures, man. I definitely wanted you to be able to smoke the dry sift. That Kimbo was actually made by my wife, so the pictures and all the kind words, you know, that you shared and everybody on your Facebook and Instagram, it really gave her a morale boost. She's very proud of what she does. And I'm just thankful that it got to you in that quality.
Yeah, it was still powdery goodness, and some of the last of it I got to smoke with my friend Kimbo. Tony was there too.
Yeah, she was wondering if it was Kimbo Slice, the dude that...
No, everyone asks him that. He's definitely not Kimbo Slice. He's just a dude that my uncle has known for years, that I've known for some time from Winnipeg, a friend that spends time in Jamaica. So he quite enjoyed it as well. I think he damn near died when he took his first hit.
Sweet, yeah. Hey, I can't believe that the Kimbo got didn't place and that the cookies got third. I thought the Kimbo was great. If anything, I thought my wife would have placed. But we're happy with the results regardless. And speaking of Kimbo, the actual Kimbo Slice, just to give you a funny tidbit, we saw this on his Twitter. He's not very happy that X named the strain Kimbo Kush.
Really?
He's actually seeking royalties, yeah. Isn't that crazy? He took like a picture of a concentrate and was all upset about it. He should be happy, man.
Slice.
Yeah, I'm from Florida just like you, Kimbo. I'm your fan. Don't sue us, man. I'll just spark you up whenever.
Whenever. Just send him some of that dry sift. You know what? I'll tell you one thing, Cuban. If the judging was extended into not only like testing, but like say just even macro photography, if you were just going to macro photograph the entries, how the hell could you, like it blew me away, dude. I mean, to me, the strain itself, I didn't find it to be like the most like knock me down potent strain, but the flavor of it was just like so effing tasty. It was definitely like the tastiest thing that we hit there without terps. And I don't even think we even added terps one time to it, did we, Tony? No, he's got the bug.
Let me think about that.
I don't think we did, bro.
No. No, we left it unadulterated.
The other one was nice, the cookies and cream, but it did not photograph as nice as that Kimbo Kush. That Kimbo Kush just photographed really nice.
We did though dip the cookies and cream sift rosin.
That's right. And who had that? That was like Kunz?
Constantine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's right. I remember because I was just dabbing everyone down, and then I could see just your back to me, and I was like, that's never a good thing when Tony has his back to me. So I kind of peered over you. I was like, what's going on over here? And you're like,
yeah, you definitely. At that moment, it was one of those things like at the kids in the yard. You got like, because you were so tired, you assumed that like I was preparing this whole dab, and you assumed like the first one was for them, but like the second one I was trying to prepare for you, and you were like, oh yeah, that's fine. I don't need any of that stuff. No, you guys are all hoarding around there. I haven't even had a dab, and I'm like, nobody's had it yet. I'm trying to get you one first.
it was the butter. It was the rosin butter, right?
Oh God, that was insane. Yeah. Yeah, it was so good.
Nice.
Yeah, man. But you know, you take it how it is. I'm happy that the top three were actually all friends of mine. The first place, dude, Boondocks. I met him at Chalice, and it was like in the beginning of his cup entering career, I guess you can call it. You know, he was asking me how I felt to win and all that stuff. So it's cool to see him win in first place. I know the grower that he's working with is exceptional. His name is Mass Genetics, and they've just been killing it with that strawberry banana. It's a crazy terpene. And second place was Cushy Candies, he's from Denver, and he was actually the first place in Amsterdam last year. So to see him in second place and me get third, I mean, I'm happy with it. You know. But I'm gearing up for LA, man. I'm gonna enter some different flavors than the Kimbo and the cookies and cream. We're starting to pheno hunt and take like the dry sift resin producing high terp strains kind of mainstream. That's X's goal this year or next year for 2016 is to produce more strains that have that type of resin quality, like the Kimbo. Maybe take an OG that can sift like that, breed it to the same male, and you know, keep it going. Because the Kimbo and the cookies has been good, but we've been ragging it out for a whole year already, you know.
Bong rip.
Yeah, you're muted, Mark.
What I was
Cuban, I had a question.
Of course it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, it was about the Kimbo Kush and like these elite genetics that are producing this dry sift. I started watching a couple of YouTube videos, and I've seen major trichomes on veg plants, clone plants, and it was like the guy just kept going like, it's about the genetics, man, and I'm like, fuck. If you're gonna show it to me like that, it is about the genetics. Like, how much do you believe that the strains that you've pretty much built your brand with are genetically unique, and that's, you just can't hope to emulate it just because you've got clean sift, or there's certain things you can't do because the plant's producing it in a clone, and like not just a little trichome, like the full stalk and ball, like a 70 head. It's really abnormal genetics, I would think, that, you know, really make the difference. Would you agree? Because you see it.
Well, I'll tell you what, recently I was gifted the clones of Cookies and Cream 13, which is the cup winner, and Kimbo Kush, the same pheno. In veg, because I have them little, they have no trichome production or anything. It's really just, I think it's that Starfighter, because the blackberry in the Kimbo cross is not something you can sift. It's more water hash, you know what I mean? It's kind of low potency, very greasy, but that Starfighter, it just hit it off. It made it very dry, kind of like a haze, but the oil content inside those heads is so high that even when it's like 95% pure, that dry sift melts like a 99, you know, to the untrained eye. And it's really easy to get to 99 just because the heads are perfect for dry sifting. It makes it easy. I really think, I don't know, it has to be genetics, brother, for sure, because I've never sifted anything that has given me those those results before. I have strains that sift. I have a sour that sifts nice, hazes that sift nice, right? But man, nothing like that Kimbo in the cookies and in the cookies and cream. But the Kimbo, more than anything, I think is really like the best dry sift strain I have ever worked with.
It's all about the strain for sure. I can definitely say over the years, from the things that I've seen, when it's all on point, the slee stack that they crossed with that skunk back in the day, that was pretty ridiculous. Before that, just the skunk #1, Skunkman Sam's cut, produced the most ridiculously potent and tasty and melty. Like, his dry sift just turned to water. Just turned to water. Liquefied through the tightest of screens. It was insane. I mean, it was really truly the inspiration. You know, that was the first time when I asked him, can I just take a picture of this? And I felt bad, because back in those days you didn't really ask him like things like that. You just kind of were happy to be able to hang out and be shooting the shit and learning, and didn't want to push the boundaries too much. But one day when I was there at his house, I finally just said, can I please just take a picture of that? And he was like, yeah, take a picture. And that was, of course, the first picture that went up on the internet of like the 99.999% sift, which it definitely got people talking, I'll tell you that much. I think at that very moment, the door was cracked for people to just want this. And I mean, people had acquired it before, not quite, 90% heads maybe, if they got lucky with a little grinder or some trim bin, or, you know, a quick trick through a couple of screens. But to be able to acquire like large amounts of it, to be able to get like 10 or 20 or 100 grams of it, that was the door that was cracked open that day. And well, hopefully one day, you know, it'll open even further, and we'll see people having access to being able to just have jars of this stuff. Everyone needs jars of this stuff. Nice hazers and sweet skunkers and Congos and Kimbo Kushes and cookies and cream and every other variety that you love. It's like the best representation is really like, if you can get it into its dry sift form, that will tell you what's going on. Hey, welcome, Jen. Holy, I would say how you doing, but my goodness, we told your story at the start of church today, and it was very it was a sad start to the day.
Yeah, it's I have better stories to tell. This isn't one of them, but it is all at the same time, so it's kind of conflicting.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that like, I don't really understand it exactly, but I guess you guys were kind of went to like an island or something where they're like, when the water goes down, you're able to drive over.
Yeah, I believe it's called Melbourne. What is it? Melbourne something. But basically, I think it's Melbourne Sandbar. Basically, it's this little island, and as the tide comes up, it covers the walkway just a little bit, and it can vary in depth. But for some reason, on that day, the tide came in really, really fast, and so I don't know. I don't even really know where to start. Yeah, I don't know where to start.
So was the other guy that you were with, Pat? Is he from Happy Daddy?
Yeah, that's Pat.
Okay. So I do know Pat.
Yeah, Pat Emerson. He's an amazing, amazing person.
Wow. Jeez, Melise. Well, it's just crazy, terrible, terrible loss. You know, I mean, I guess sharing again the GoFundMe page of Harland is a good start. You know, telling us a little bit about your good buddy who passed on. You know, basically being a hero and helping save your guys' life.
Yeah. The craziest thing is the man that saved my life. Like, I met him that day, actually. Pat and I weren't having the best day, and we kind of talked, and I was like, I really just need to get out. I'm stressed. And he was like, me too. So I went over there, and that's when I met Harlan. Harlan is Pat's best friend. He had just moved him out from the East Coast to come out and experience the cannabis life and get to work and, you know, start his life out here so that he could bring his mother and hopefully his daughter. So I went over to Pat's that morning, and Harlan was just the sweetest person. Like, him and I just hit it off and chatted and joked, and he was just the kindest soul. Like, just one of those people that the second I was like, "Hi, I'm Jen," he was like, "Harlan," and I was like, "Cool, let's fucking blaze and talk about you." And so I got to learn quite a bit about him in a very short amount of time, and still just blows me away right now that this person that I've literally knew for 7 hours will always be such a huge part of my life. Like,
Yeah, that's a serious experience that you guys went through together.
We love you, Jen. Whatever you can get through.
I love you guys. I owe it to Pat and Harlan to be able to come on here and, you know, tell our story, because this was just, it was such a freak accident. I wish that there was some blame that could be put anywhere, you know, anywhere at all. Like, there's just not. There's not. This shouldn't have happened. The tide that came in is kind of a rare occurrence. It's not unheard of, but it was 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and the water rose in 10 minutes. It rose probably at least a foot. Like, there was no indication whatsoever that any of this was going to happen. And so, you know, there's no fault or blame to put anywhere. It's just the universe just put us exactly where we should not have been. And I don't know. I'm still trying to just wrap my fucking head around it. I can't go 10 minutes without just crying, and it's just so hard. Like, this just really shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it's definitely terrible. It's definitely terrible. It's death is such an intense experience, and it seems to be so, you know, so eternal. It's just like, what? I never get to see this person again. We've definitely, I'm sure we have in this room. I know I have for sure lost people that just were so close to me, and it just shattered me in such a way that you lose a little bit of yourself when you lose people. Even if you only knew them for a day, you know, the fact that you met them that day and had that experience and that all went down that way, you guys are definitely linked for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. I'm happy to try and kind of like walk through the story. I know everybody's just really interested in what happened, and honestly, like, I'm having as much of an outpour as we've had for people to help and donate. I'm kind of having this whole like heavy heart on, I guess, like, how overused GoFundMe and stuff is, and how kind of numb people are to real life circumstances that are affecting other people's lives. Like, it's so easy to just hear about something like this and scroll through it on your timeline and be like, oh, that's sad, they need help, oh, that's sad, like, and then continue on, you know. And I don't know, like, if I could ask everybody here today if they could just literally take 5 minutes right now. I don't care if you have $1. Everybody has $5 in 2 minutes. But it seems as though people kind of want to wait, and they think everybody else is going to step in. I have a lot of followers. I have a shit ton of people that constantly tell me how much they appreciate me. And if just every single one of those people would just take the 2 minutes that they could to just throw a donation on there, like, it would be overwhelming for the people that it actually affects. It's such a little task for everybody out there that's watching. Such a little task. It's 2 minutes, you know. Put your fucking credit card in there. I don't care if you have 52 cents to your name that you can spare. Like, that adds up, you know. And we just really want to get him home to his family. He's from back east, and he had just moved out here a week prior. And so, you know, we're finding ourselves in this circumstance where now we have to send him home to his family, and we really just, I can't express how much we need everybody's help right now to just pull together as a community and help, you know. He was helping his sick mother. When I'd spoke to him before we left for our little four-wheeling adventure, he told me about his mother and about his daughter and how his mother's struggling, and he's, you know, he had full plans of settling his feet here and being able to bring her out here so that he could take care of her. And I just can't express enough how much, like, that 2 minutes for you guys to please just take that time and anything that you can possibly throw at it. Like, it would mean the fucking world to so many people. But it hurts my heart to see how numb this world is to just tragedy, you know? Like, everybody's so sorry, but they don't understand. Like, if you just help a little bit, you know? Like, it can really help this out. And so we're appreciative for everybody that has stepped up. But I hate to say it, but I need more, guys. I need more, you know? We need more. We need to appreciate this. I guess I'm kind of finding myself stuck in this weird circumstance where I'm watching this amount go up, and I'm, as fucked up as this sounds, it's like that's how much my life is worth. Because without that man and what he did, I wouldn't be here today. And I just really hope people understand that and can just take that extra time. Like, I know it's the holidays. I know it's hard. I know everybody's tight, but it's just so important what such a small contribution can do as a community. Like, so many small contributions coming together can really help the people that are hurting through this hard time. So I just really hope everybody out there has a heart and a minute that they can fucking help us out.
Absolutely. It doesn't take much, especially when there's hundreds, if not thousands of people. You know, a few bucks, $5, $10, something is more than nothing, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you guys can help walk me through it. Like, if you want to hear the events of that day, I guess they're just still so fresh in my head that it's really hard for me to know where to go with it, because the pain and the sorrow that I feel right now, like, I guess it's almost hard for me to share the story, because I know how it affects the other people, you know, that do care about Pat and I and Harlan, and I know it's been hard for so many people. But yeah, if you guys want to kind of help walk me through it, if people are interested in the story, it's definitely one that deserves to be shared, as hard and as painful as it is. So
I mean, just I guess start while you're driving in the car, I guess.
So Pat drives a Suzuki Sidekick that is just awesome. It's all ready for four-wheeling. It's got the tires. It's got the lift pack. It's got, I mean, shit, we stopped and we had a conversation when we were in the mountains about all the safety gear that we had in the back, you know, like if we were to get trapped up here in the mountains in the cold, or if something was to happen to the vehicle, I have extra boots, I have extra blankets, you know, I have all of this stuff in the back. Like, we had that conversation. Pat's a very cautious four-wheeler. There was a couple different paths that we almost went up that, you know, he stopped and was like, oh, no, that's not safe. So the sad thing is like, all of that safety shit in the back of his truck sunk to the bottom of the river. And you never think that something like this is going to happen. And even when it does, like, as much as you think that you're prepared for a circumstance, you're just not. You can't be prepared for something like this. So I guess the best place to start would be, we had the most amazing day ever. We went four-wheeling, like, on our way back to Pat's house. We were like, oh, we feel so relaxed, so refreshed. Like, God, we needed this. And Pat had a snorkel on his truck, and I was really interested in that, you know? I was like, that's really cool. Do you ever get to use your snorkel? And he was like, there's this place down by my house, you know, we're going to go see if my friend's down there, and I'll let you check it out. And so we all went down to the shore by the river, and we stopped and we talked to the man in the truck that was It was sitting right by where we actually went across to go to the island, and we kind of chatted up with him. He was throwing a ball to his dog and stuff, and we're like, yeah, how is it? He was like, it's a little deep, but you guys have fun. Kind of waved us on our way, and so off we went, and we went across, and the water came up to just barely below the door. Because when we got to the island, I actually was so shocked because it looked a lot deeper from inside of the car when we were going across. So I was examining the mud on the car to see, like, how deep was that water? And it was just barely to the bottom of the door. Like, nothing to be concerned about. We stayed on that island for about 10 minutes. Smoked a cigarette. Hate to say it. Yes, I smoke. I'm sorry, Hash Church. I've been concealing that, but welcome to my life. We smoked a cigarette and had some really good conversation and shared some jokes, and then we decided to head back over. And we got in the car. When we stopped at the very before we went in the water, we could see that. When we stopped right at the water, we noticed the dog was swimming in the current, and we waited for the dog to get out of the river because we didn't want it to get in the way. So once the dog got out of the river, we noticed like how strong that current was, and it was just like a passing thought, like, wow, if that dog just swam to the left a little bit, it wouldn't be fighting so hard. Passing conversation that did not cross my mind until it was too late, you know. So we headed back across the river, and everything seemed perfectly fine. And out of nowhere, there was just this very small wave, maybe like this, a small ripple in the water. We noticed the car getting deeper, and as this ripple hit us, it lifted the back of our car up a little bit and just bumped us just to the side. And this sand is flat, but then it drops down. And so it actually ended up pulling our tires down the side. And as Pat tried to get the traction back to keep us on the sandbar, we realized that we were in a lot of trouble. And he just kept flooring it and trying to just work our way back up and just keep any traction that we possibly could. And so as he did that, the current was coming because we were right where the current was. And the current started to take our car and turn it sideways. So now, rather than all 4 of our tires being on the pathway, only 2 of them were on the pathway. And the back end of our car started going up, and we thought that maybe we had hit another little sandbar, and that, you know, maybe if we like changed directions, we would be able to push ourselves back up. Well, as all this was happening, I looked down at my feet and I realized that there was ice cold water up to about halfway up my ankles, and it was just pouring in to the car from underneath the glove compartment. And I was just screaming, Pat, what do we do? What do we do? And he was just trying his hardest to keep us on that sandbar as long as he could. And as the car sunk down, my side of the car went down first. Pat was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and Harlem was in the back seat. And as we started to sink, we could feel our tires sinking into the rocks, and it was kicking them out, and we were going down, and the water started coming over the hood, and the water was about 6 inches over my window already, and our back end was kind of up. So I didn't know what to do, because if I opened that window, I knew that the water would start pouring in faster and we would sink. So as he continued, we thought we hit that sandbar, and he put it in reverse to try and catch the grip on that, to try and give us a chute to go back forward again. And that's when we had the horrific time of figuring out that we didn't hit a sandbar, we were just sinking, and the back end of us was floating. Pat's window was open because he was he was looking out the window trying to see if he could see the edge of that sandbar and trying to get us back up to safety. And as the car pushed itself off of that sandbar just enough, our top end started going down and water started pouring in Pat's door. And I just remember screaming, get out, everybody get out. And at the same time, I knew that it was going to be an incredible struggle for us to even get out of the car at that point. Pat was the only one with an open window, but there was rushing water that kept him from being able to escape, and his seatbelt was still on. And so as the car sank, Pat struggled for his seatbelt, and I struggled to get my door open as the water rose up to my knees and then to my waist and then up past my chest. And I just remember trying to roll the window down, and I remember knowing, I don't know when in my life I had this conversation, but I had the conversation about, wow, you know, like if you're stuck in a car in the water, how do you get out? Because the pressure, just the pressure alone on your car makes it so that there's no possible way for you to open that window. You cannot open the door. Like, you're just trapped. There's nothing that you can do. You're just so helpless. And so as the water started to pour in, I tried to open both the door and the window, and I realized that it just wasn't going to happen. And the water came above my head, and I remember stepping on the dash and basically fighting the water to try and get to the last little breath of air that I could see, because it just filled in so fast that it was a split second and I was just underwater. And so I pushed my way to the back of the car, and right as the last 4 inches of water at the very top corner of the car started to disappear, I took a breath, and I remembered that earlier in that day, Pat had told me that there were snaps that were broken. He had one snap on the back of his Suzuki Sidekick on the cover that was broken, and so it flapped when the window was open. I remember very clearly, as I took that last breath of air, I saw the tiniest pinhole of light coming through where that broken snap was, and in my head I heard someone yell to me, "Snaps," and I took my last breath and I shoved so hard through the back of that thing that Harland and I were able to unsnap it and push through right as the car was probably about 3 inches underwater. And I remember kicking out and being able to see that Pat got out, but then it was freezing and it hit me that I was sinking, and I was actually wearing this coat right here, which I haven't been able to put on until today. But it's an Amsterdam coat. I got it at Barney's, and you guys know how nice those coats are. They're really nice, thick hoodies. And I had another sweatshirt on under it. And as soon as I realized Pat was out, I realized that I was going under, and I was trying to fight so hard to get up, but my clothes were so heavy, I couldn't, and I remember seeing the top of the water, and I was probably like 3 inches under. I just remember this vision of opening my eyes in that river and not being able to see the sky except for through the water. And I was just kicking, and all of a sudden, Harlan grabbed the back of my hoodie and pulled me up so that I could get a breath. And I just kept kicking, and I was fighting, and he was helping push me towards the car because the car hadn't settled to the bottom of the ground yet. It nosedived, so it went down like this, and then it took a minute for it actually to settle flat on the ground. So we're in the middle of the current, and I was just trying to stay above, and I just remember saying, "I can't swim very well, I can't." And he helped push me so I could find the footing on the car as it settled to the ground. And I remember just barely being able to find where I could stand, and the water was still anywhere from like the middle of my waist to a little over my chest, depending on the waves that were coming in. And as soon as I realized that I had something to stand on and I could breathe, I turned around, and the current had just taken him just out of reach. And I saw Pat was still swimming next to the car, and he had tried to work himself around to the back because the current was just so strong right then. Carried him around to the back, and Harlan kind of floated off a little bit more, but we all thought we were going to be okay. We all really underestimated the power of cold water. Hypothermia sets in so fast, and when it does, there's nothing you can do. It literally shuts down your entire body. It starts shutting down your organs. It shuts down your ability to move your limbs. It shuts down your ability to think and to process situations. And so when we all got out of the car, like, we really thought that we were okay. You know, like, you make it through something so intense as sinking in a fucking car to the bottom of the river. Like, we thought we were going to be okay. Well, Pat swam around to the side and was fighting to stay up because his pants were falling off. He was wearing a pair of sweatpants, and we were all in sweatshirts. We were just up in the mountains four-wheeling. It was cold. So Pat was fighting really hard, and I just told him, just take your pants off, dude. Just kick. You gotta stay with me. And he kept going under, and it's just so fucking surreal to just look at it. Like, I can't even look at it, but every time I close my eyes, that's all I see is my friends just like stuck in that water, and there's nothing I can do. I tried to reach for Pat, and I told him I'm standing on the car, and if you can just swim to me. And I remember reaching for the bottom of the car to try and hold on to the frame or to try and hold on to anything that I could so that I could reach him, because he was just barely out of reach, and he was fighting so hard to try and swim against the current. When I reached for the frame of the car, my head went underwater, and I knew that there was nothing I could do because I about fell off the car at that point. Like, it's a soft top, it's slippery, it's soft and under my feet moving, and I was basically balancing on one of the bars that held it. And I just couldn't reach him, and he just kept going under and fighting his way back up. And all I could think of is to just try and tell him, float on your back. You guys have to float on your back. If you can just float, you're not going to sink. And so Pat was able to flip on his back and float and just kind of ride the current. And Harlan was probably about 15 to 20 feet away from Pat. He was trying to do the same thing, but the water was just so cold that, like, your body just starts shutting down. And so as all of this chaos is going on, we're just screaming for help and screaming, stay with me, guys, stay with me. You gotta just fucking stay with me. And I saw a fisherman boat came around from the other side and looped around, and I just remember pointing at Harlan and watching him go under and screaming, he's right there, you have to get him. And they pulled up right next to him, and they tried to grab him. I'm sorry, it's just so hard. One of the men on the boat reached over the side and they grabbed his arm, and they were so close, like I thought they had him. And I had to watch his hand just slip out of that man's hand. And I just remember screaming, no, you have to get him. And I remember hearing him on the boat say, he's gone, we have to get the other ones, we have to get the other two. And so the fishing boat quickly came over to Pat, thank God, because he was going under. Craziest thing, I talked to Pat the other day, and him and I have such a different memory of the occurrences as far as the time that he was in the water. I had to watch, and he thought that he was okay. He was like, I was fine, I was okay, and I had to tell him, no, you weren't. Like, that was your body dying. Like, that was your soul trying to leave your body because of the hypothermia. You weren't okay at all. And I guess that brings me a little bit of comfort, just knowing that if Pat was in that state of mind where he was fine and it was just kind of slipping slowly away, like I can only pray to whatever the fuck, that Harlan had the same experience, you know, because Pat kind of found himself almost at peace for a minute as he floated there in the water. And so the boat went for Pat, and they were able to pull him out. And I was just standing on the car screaming at them, I'm fine, please go back. Please, please, please go back. They wouldn't. They just kept telling me, he's gone, there's nothing we can do. And so after the boat pulled Pat in, they came full force at me. In one of the news clips, the fisherman actually says that he almost ran me over, and he really truly did. I didn't remember this until I saw that news clip, but he had to fight the current to get to us, and so he had to put it in full gear and gun it towards me. And I remember him telling me to brace myself, and the front of the boat came about 2 feet from me, like full speed ahead, and then he slammed it in reverse, and the wave that the boat created actually like almost washed me off the car. It went over my head, and then as he threw it in reverse, it like pushed me back, and then it pulled me back forward. He was able to swing around and grab my arm and drag me on the side, and so they were able to pull us in. But right as they pulled me in, I just kept telling them, we have to go back, and all they could tell me is, you just need to calm down. And all I could think is, how am I going to be calm? You know, there's only so much time that a person can be in the water. But as they pulled us into shore, we saw the rescue boats coming, and they pulled us into the ambulance. And it wasn't until a couple hours later that they actually told us that Harlan had passed, and that they were able to recover his body. And it's just, I just can't stop reliving that moment, you know, and you can't explain how anybody could be more grateful for life right now than I am. It's just so much. I don't know what else I can do other than everything I can to just help his family, you know?
Well, I think that's a noble thing for sure. It's you know, it's a heavy thing. You just have to be thankful for your position in all of it, and understand. I'm a firm believer that every decision we make in our life leads us to that day, and it's never. It's like every decision you make leads us to that day. And I had to overcome that thought with trying to understand my father and his wife's death, and how sudden it was, and you know, on a motorcycle that I had purchased for them. And I had to go through all of these different thoughts in my mind, and I really came to the conclusion that you won't be late and you won't be early. You'll just be right on time when you make it to your death, as we all will. It's just a little scary when you get close to the veil, when you get real close to it with some other people and they don't make it. You know, that's a very intense experience that I mean, how do you even make sense of it? There's no sense to be made of it. Heavy.
Hey, Jen, tell us a little bit of what you're thankful for.
I am thankful for every single fucking person that has ever been kind to me, that has ever told me that they love me, that has ever been there or not been there for me. It doesn't even matter. I can't even begin to say what I'm thankful for, because it's just the craziest realization. You know, it's like the world is really like almost in a different light, and I'm just so fucking thankful to come home to my kids. And my poor parents are in Utah and they're flipping out. They want to be here so bad. And
I'll bet you're thankful for that fisherman.
I am very thankful for those fishermen. I'm thankful for the man on the dock, you know, before we went in, because in the midst of all this shock, somehow my brain thought that I would be able to call 911 or call my children from the top of the fucking car in the middle of the river. Like I remember having my phone in my hand, and the last glitch I saw from my phone, I was hitting the send button to try and call 911. And it's just crazy because that's so asinine to think that that would actually work. But in that moment, it's just crazy where your head goes, you know? And I don't think there'll ever be anything in my lifetime that I'm not grateful for, good or bad, because even the bad shit, guess what? I'm fucking here to experience it and grow from it. You know, it's not just the good that brings us to center with ourselves. It's kind of like that balance, and just appreciating the fact that we're here to be able to acknowledge that balance.
Indeed. Well, I appreciate you coming and sharing your story, Jen, and we'll definitely we'll be donating some money to that GoFundMe. It's easy.
That would be fabulous, because at this point there's not much else we can do. But Harlan left behind his sick mother and also an 11-year-old daughter. And I look at my children, and I'm just so grateful for basically a stranger, but not helping me come home to my kids, because without what he did, I would have been the first one down. Like, I'm 150 pounds soaking wet. Like, my body wouldn't have been able to last in that water. Like, it's just a fact. You know, I looked it up, actually. I started researching hypothermia and all this stuff. Doesn't take long at all. And yeah, even if I was able to swim without sinking in my incredibly heavy clothes, I wouldn't have made it out of that river because it was too cold.
Yeah, it just grabs you. You can't even breathe when you're in cold water like that.
You can't breathe, you can't think, you literally can't move. Yeah, so I will let's just say I appreciate life to the fullest, more than a lot of people will hopefully ever have to. I know that a lot of people that survive these tragedies and death and these really close calls, you know, like, it really does change you.
Definitely helps define who we become, that's for sure. It always has. It's why we've always pushed it away as well. We push death. We don't talk about death too much, and it's sort of pushed to the outer limits of human experience, and not, you know, some cultures acknowledge it more than others, but here in the North America, we definitely don't seem to acknowledge it too much until someone dies, and then it gets acknowledged for a little bit, and then it sort of slowly wears off. I definitely I feel for you, Jen.
Well, the most dangerous thing that most people do every day is drive a vehicle. It is again, the clue is that the buoyancy of the vehicle was played out in Jen's story here, and the first thing that set alarm bells off to me is when you see that water level is damn near close to the doors. You're inches away from being swept away. As heavy as you think as your vehicle is, water is heavier, and it'll have a bigger force to basically sweep that car away. And so I know, like when waters of rivers overflow their banks, and you're tempted to drive through a bridge or something that's sort of being washed out. I mean, you should really think twice about it, because you can't compress the water. And exactly the way Jen said, the reason why the back of the car went up is because of the buoyancy of the air in the trunk, right? And so the heaviness of the engine is gonna be the force that's acting on the water to sink the car. And if you do see that water level damn near close to the doors, that should be the first thing that you need to get the hell out of there, because there's no match. The biggest vehicle is no match for a rushing river like the Willamette or the Columbia or any of those big tidal rivers out there out west.
Yeah, and the fact that we were only there for 10 minutes, that's one thing that I read about the Willamette River, is that they have these really odd tides. It's similar to tides in the ocean, but obviously different timing and whatnot. But I was reading somewhere, and it said that the Willamette River can actually raise up to 8 feet in 2 hours. We were on the island 10 minutes. Yeah, in 10 minutes, you wouldn't think that water would be able to raise a foot.
Sorry about the interruption there. Johnny B just got here. I was saying hello to him.
Hi, Johnny B.
Hi, Jen.
Jen was telling us her story.
Yeah,
it's been. There we go.
Yeah, the scariest part about this, and I think Pat and I are both in agreement, we're really hoping that they do choose to close that sandbar down, because people drive across that all the time. If you look at some of the news footage from the very next day when they're actually pulling the car out of the water, there is a Toyota Camry parked on the fucking island and driving across. Like, that's how common this place is for people to go, and I'm actually really fucking upset that they didn't have more signs or something. Like, one sign posted on the dock, from what I hear, that just says warning, and that's about it. But 3 years ago, somebody died doing the same goddamn thing. Why wouldn't the city post that? Why wouldn't they close it down? You know, I just don't understand. So I know both of us are really hoping they close that part down, because we had zero indication. Zero. Like, Pat is such a very cautious driver.
Well, I was just kind of mentioning, even in the chat, in the YouTube chat here, about that, in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm sure in other parts where there's epic nature, when you spend time in epic nature, you generally, things like this can happen. It's not, they're not as freak as we think. It's just that nature's always a tripper and a freak and does whatever she wants. And it's, I spend a lot of my time in the backcountry mountains, snowboarding and photographing skiers and sledders and snowboarders, and I go sledding into the tops and bases of deep bowls on mountains, and I can say that it's every year we hear multiple stories of people perishing in those environments, and it seems as though really wherever humans choose to be, we will die there as well. So it's you can question the and say, oh, it's so dangerous, and you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that, but it's like, it's beautiful and it's nature, and it's how we bond through those moments. And it's terrible that the tragedy occurred, but at the same time, it's I like the idea of you celebrating Harlan's life and doing good for him, rather than focusing on the negative aspects of how he came to his life came to end.
Yeah. Well, I know that that's not what he would want. He was such a positive person, and from all the outreach that I've had from his friends and family, he's just a good guy, you know. He wouldn't want us to be letting this affect us in a negative way. Like, of course it's going to, of course, but he would want it to be better, you know. So I feel like I need to take this opportunity to just not only better myself and make sure that I'm making my time worth something, but also hopefully encourage other people to do the same, because you don't want to go through a near-death experience in order to realize how precious life is, you know?
True. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Johnny B. Johnny B says he's been there.
Been there a couple times, and you know what? It gives you a whole change on life, and it really makes you think, and it makes you get perspective on what you see with other people. When you see someone limp or hold their arm, and it makes you think of what they went through, and how they.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have any awesome inspirational stories to lighten the mood for me a little bit, I would love it.
Inspirational stories.
Inspirational stories. Well, let's see.
You know what? Just for what you've gone through and what you've experienced, and what you're about ready to embark on life. You're about ready to tell people and share your story, and just your experience is going to help so many people understand about what someone's going through when they suffer a grief or a loss, or they go through a traumatic change in their life. That's one thing that's changed me, is the traumatic changes in my life has changed me to help educate other people. And I think with you, Jen, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take this and you're going to take it to another level. So what has happened to you is just only going to benefit more people around you and stuff like that. Like, just the person you are, what I see.
And we're all grateful for that.
Grateful.
Grateful to have you here, as well as, you know, the past is the past. You can create the future that you want to see. So, you know, you've been helping others. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, is it, Jen?
Never.
No. So, you know, just keep on being the awesome inspiration that you are, you know. We've all had our tragedies. We've all found medical cannabis in our own way, you know. Mine was through war, you know. Others have other experiences, so nothing inspirational in war. But surviving and coming out the other end, and after seeing the worst that man can do, I've tried to do the best that man can do. So, you know, always find in that darkness, that lightness that brings you out. Look, it's going to take some time. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to deal with. You know, that's a lot of stuff to happen in a short amount of time. And you're going to be okay. You know, there's going to be times, you know, survivor's guilt, all that shit. It comes with the territory. You ever feel down, just be around people. Be around those that you love. You know, call your kids. Remind yourself why you're here. You know, you're here for a reason. We don't know what, but go create it. Be it. Be the awesome person we know that you can be and have been.
I just drove an hour and a half for this bong rip.
John did just drive an hour and a half for this bong rip. He just took some of his Dennis Hopper flower resin, and I dipped it into the lemon terps.
Wow.
The lemon terps. So
Can we take a much-needed fucking bong rip in memory of my goddamn hero?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Jen. I shit you not. That is what I was just about to say.
I was just gonna say that too. That's super.
Well, I just did the
super emotional, like probably the most emotional hash trips we've ever had. My skin was like crawling as you were describing your story. I think, I mean, I would have been in a complete panic attack and just ran out of air myself. I don't know. Like, that's like super scary for me. I just don't like anything with water and the breathing and things, just not being able to have control.
I still plug my nose when I go underwater. So
are we taking this hit?
Do it.
Do a group hit?
Group hit. I just want to say I love you guys. I really appreciate you guys being so supportive.
Bong rip for Harlan. Bong rip for Pat. Bong rip for Jen.
For Pat and Harlan. I know Pat is watching right now, so I just want to say, Pat, I love you, brother. I got you, bud.
Sorry to hear what you're going through, Pat. We're taking this one for all of you guys. So here we go.
Love you, Jen.
Load them up.
All right, hold on. Getting way ahead.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Hey, I wanted to welcome Chris Bennett to the room. He came in with the intensity of the story, and we never got to welcome him, but welcome, buddy. I hope you're
Great to be here, and cannabis has a long history as a drug for grief. It was part of Scythian funerary rites, thought to be the nepenthe, which eased grief of lost ones, and I think when one of the ways I think the spirituality of cannabis really comes out is you kind of like get high with everybody who ever got high, and it's a great plant for much better than the Irish wake, that's for sure, for going into that and getting through it.
Absolutely. I would agree with that for sure. That the Irish wake is definitely not the way to go about mourning, and that smoking cannabis could just seems like the opposite of the Irish wake. And I'm Irish.
There you go.
I'm Irish.
Wow. I'm Irish, Scottish, Dutch.
Wow, I'm Irish, Scottish, French.
Irish English.
Awesome.
John looks like the new Dutch king.
That's why I'm growing the hair out. I gotta get
You just got to get the suit with that big thing there that he wears.
that.
And the thing. He's got the other thing. Yeah, you got to get that, man. We'll go to Holland with John. I don't think people are going to Holland next year, though. I have to say, after the Jamaican Cannabis Cup, if there was one in Amsterdam and in Jamaica, I really might have to go to the one in Jamaica.
I'm gonna have to go to the next one. Where it is.
I would suggest it. I mean, there's probably going to be 20 of them between now and here Todd's back. There we go. Boom. Welcome back, Todd.
They have one in Barcelona that definitely.
Well, I don't think they do. I think the Barcelona one is Spanibus, and I guess Mila throws her party. Who's going to come to Spanibus in March? Would Spanibus be a good place to have a little Legends? Because, man, I'd start planning that shit right now.
Yes.
Barcelona is the new Amsterdam for sure.
It is. We could probably get a great place to do Legends of Hash.
Easily. A lot of those smoking clubs are really beautiful now. They've put a lot of money into infrastructure and they've really stepped it up. I mean, Strain Hunters comes to mind and others.
Yeah, Strain Hunters and HQ for sure come to mind right away.
HQ's without a doubt. HQ rocked it, man. I mean, I appreciated the hell out of that, as well as the Strain Hunter spot. I mean, I joined 4 different spots in Barcelona. I appreciated the hell out of Barcelona. They're fucking awesome.
Yeah. I also love Barcelona. I have fun. I think this year I'm going to bring my family for a little vacation before or after or a bit during, but definitely make sure that I like this pattern of having my family around when I'm about to go into these events. Do Legends in BC, Analytical Mike says. I did Legends in Vancouver for 3 years when I had my gallery. And I guess I could, by all means, do it. I just don't see enough. I don't know if 50 people could bring me a piece of hash that was like, I mean, it could be, here's the thing, too. Legends of Hash, in my opinion, does not involve people bringing rosin and saying, here's my full melt. Because to me, rosin is just oil that you've squeezed out of your bud. Not just oil, it's oil that you've squeezed out of your bud or your hash. And that's great, but I don't think that it's hash. I think that it's oil. Just my perspective. What do you got there, John?
Got some hash.
What kind of hash is that?
That was the LR Kush that we brought to the Legends last year.
The LR?
LR.
The Larry?
Romulan.
The Romulan.
Larry OG cross Rom.
Larry OG crossed with Romulan.
Ooh, that must be a tasty victual.
You named it LR Kush. I called it number 2 for so long. You're like, why don't you just call it what it is? So.
All right. Well, let's put some on the nail.
So we have some 90, 73, and then we have 90, 73, 120.
90?
90.
90. Oh.
With the hair.
Dude, it's almost impossible not to.
I'll put more in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Let me say, come on. There's 2 of us.
There is 2 of us. There is 2 of us. Well,
note of half.
We're getting back to some hash here on Hash Church. I hope everyone has something nice to smoke. What do you guys think about hash and oil? Not to say one is above the other, just do you believe that they are different things, or do you believe that oil is hash?
Here's some 45.
Anyone? Nobody?
Wow.
What?
No one's commenting.
I know, not a single person is talking.
Nobody.
It's like not even a single person. They're just like, fuck this, I'm not talking.
Guys, I have to go because we have a memorial at 3 o'clock, and today is actually the 1 week mark. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, happy 1 week birthday on your new life.
Thank you. So yeah, if you guys are still session around 2:15 Pacific Northwest time, that is the exact time that we were in the water. So you guys could definitely lift a bong for us. I would appreciate it. And if everybody could definitely please just push home on the donations, and the sooner we can help him get home and buried, the sooner I think everybody involved will be able to start piecing our lives back together. So I really appreciate you guys a shitload.
We appreciate you, Jen. Thanks for coming and sharing your story, and we will absolutely raise our bongs.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye, Jen.
Bye, guys. I'll see you. I'll try and pop in next week. I'm actually in the midst of all this. I'm in the middle of moving as well, so hopefully next week I'll be all settled at my new house. I'll see if I can't pop in. If not next week, the next one. But I'll see you guys soon.
Oh, we'll see you soon. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Doing too many things at once here.
You got 80
Typing and writing. I do have 80 things.
And I'm looking at all your cool shit.
You can have those. That cool.
Well, you were asking the question. I want to let Jen finish there, but I definitely find a difference between the high difference between rosin, DHO, CO2. You know, including old school hash oil extractions. You know, each one is a different high and a different experience depending on what you're going for. So, you know, to say what works one well for the other is, you know, different depending on the individual still.
100%. I can definitely say that the different with your dry sift, with the bubble hash and the rosin, even though this is all the same strain, they all have different effects.
And this is all ingested the same way, same temperature, etc. Varying effects, but still carboxylation.
One thing you're not seeing here in Vancouver is the CO2 oil that much. And every time I go down the States lately, everybody's got the pens with CO2 oil, and that's such a nice product. You know, it doesn't have the flavor, but it's such a clean, instantaneous high. And I can't imagine too many contaminants with that CO2.
Hey, Todd has I got a grasshopper the other day. It finally came in, the actual grasshopper pen.
Yeah.
Todd, do you have that? I actually got one, and it actually is amazing. I tried it, and you know, you just put a little bit of cannabis in the tip, and right out of the box, clicked it on, and it turned from red to blue in a matter of seconds, and it hits just like a volcano. It's a pretty amazing piece, and I love the simplicity of the little magnet back on the end. But I was very skeptical that this product would ever come out, and I left it at Todd's, and Todd's been using it at his place, needless to say. They put a little rubber tip on the end of it, but it's about the size of a pen, and it's kind of what we always wanted an herbal vaporizer to be: solid, sturdy, something that was easy to use, easy to charge. On top of that, it has its own replaceable battery, so you can actually switch out, pre-charged battery. And it's felt solidly good for a good 30 hits. Finely granulated cannabis. I wouldn't put unless you sandwiched it real well, but it's definitely a unique new way of ingesting flower, because I rarely ingest flower so much because, like you guys, how often do you, Bubbleman and you, John, actually, smoke flower per se, as much as smoke, a bubble, or there it is. Todd has it.
I haven't smoked flower for 14 years.
Have you seen this, Mark? It actually is pretty smart. It's just mostly, it's brilliant, really. So this little part is the switch, which is really quite small. It has a click to turn it on and off.
Oh, yeah.
And then, brilliantly enough, it has a magnet that connects to charge.
Oh, okay.
So the battery is here. So this is mostly battery. And then when this is together, the bowl is down here.
And you fill out.
It's really clean. It's just there's a screen through the other end, there's a screen through this end, and it's convection, so there's no real heating element that you can. Oh, there's grass in there. Sorry, I was actually using the thing. Hold on.
No, that's cool. That's what I wanted to see, that it was the herb one, because I don't use. I think the last herb one I used were probably these two right here, which is the Mighty from Volcano and the little herb trippy stick one. So I don't.
You can see it's just literally just a hole with screens on each side, and you can put. I put concentrates in with the herb in there, and it's easy to clean out. Q-tip tech shit. So, but this thing just slips over, heats up, and when you turn it on, it goes red for a second, and then it goes blue, and right there it's done. It's hot, and it goes. And then this little thing is a twist temperature, and it goes from like 200 and something to 460, I think. That's in 5 steps. It's got to be the nicest vaporizer I've ever seen in my life.
It's the smartest and the best handheld herbal vaporizer I've ever used, without a doubt.
Well, I might have to give them a call and check them out. I did recently get a bunch of different things. I got this dipstick. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, the dipstick's pretty solid. It feels like a good product. I like the magnetic cover, and it just gets orange hot real fast. You push the button, and it's just
The owner is a glass blower out of Texas. I met him at one of the shows. He was really, really nice.
We met him at
He got an idea for it, and I think it's brilliant. It's perfect for on the go.
I got this like the next day in the mail from Kyle Cushman. We were hitting it. We didn't have power for our nail, so we were putting dabs into the bowl, and then he pulled this thing out, which is called the glow stick, and it just has a simple little switch on top. It's battery operated. You push the start button. These little blue buttons start blinking, and within like 5 or so seconds, the tip just turns orange hot, and so. Yeah, you can just, I guess, use it to ignite bowls of hash. It's just another great way to do something on the go, but it gets pretty warm, gets pretty hot, and then it's easy to turn off and just cover with the little cover. So all these different little tools. Which one? That's not a vaporizer. I showed you it wasn't a vaporizer. Yeah, tripper. So yeah, there's all sorts of different products. It's neat to see. Like I said, maybe I'll have to try that herb one, because these two both do herb, and I just find it like, I don't know, like not only bulky, but just like I'd have to vaporize like 20 bowls of herb. Or
we've tried probably every pen.
Well, that's also is that we have common like bowls. So for us to really smoke herb, it doesn't work so much. But for those that smoke herb, I think the Grasshopper is the best on the market handheld herbal vaporizer. But again, we all have tolerances higher than the normal. We're the 1% of the 1%. You know what I'm saying? But it hits great, and I was rather surprised right out of the box, ready to go, put it right in, because I waited like 2 years it was one of those Kickstarters. And it took 2.5 years or something, but they came through, and they're in production now, and it's smart.
Very good.
I hope somebody applies that to the pens for, oils and stuff like that, as opposed to people who are still doing half-assery. And I think there's still a lot better things out there, and we still haven't arrived at that technology yet.
True enough. I'm sure the technology is only going to get crazier with the amount of money that's being put in this industry right now, that so many people are focused on selling and distribution and growing and all of those things, but then the product end, especially like a medical grade product, like a product that would look like it's not out of place in a hospital. Like that little grasshopper. Have your doctor come in. Please take 3 puffs on this. Oh. Perfect. What are you puffing on over there, Dana?
I tend to just get a random bag of all my different strains from my dispensary and everywhere else, and I put that together. I have a couple of different kinds of hash that I'm not sure exactly what they are, but they're good bits of hash that I grab. And then I got some oil in this vial, and I put all that into this joint, and then I'm smoking it. So I don't really know the strains or anything I've got, but it's all really good weed and hash blended together in one thing. So
not really a one-strain guy. You're just like, I like to hit everything my dispensary's carrying on all the extracts, on all the herbs.
The full spectrum blend.
The full spectrum. You should call that the full dispensary blend.
And everyone is different, right? Because everyone's got a unique blend of everything. But I used to try to keep all my strains in little different baggies and organize it. But I like mixing them together into joints anyways. I'd go a little bit of the Kush and a little bit of the Haze. That'll be a good mix. And so I thought, well, why am I just going to, it's just I get all the best weed, I put it in one bag, I grab inches of hash, and I'm good for the week. Every joint is awesome. Every joint is different and will never be recreated. So that's how I like it.
I do that with my hash, where I call that, cannabinoid concentrate, where it's basically I call it the full spectrum of cannabinoids, because, it works for me, it won't work for everybody, and it's not necessarily the tastiest way to do it, but, I don't have to worry about, I kind of feel this, that way, and the other. I get everything I want in one fell swoop.
I still smoke roach joints. I don't know if people make fun of me because I keep my roaches and I smoke roach joints. And I tell you, though, I've rolled roach joints, and I've given them to people, say, hey, guess what strain this is? I'm just curious what you think about it. No one has ever said, oh, dude, this is a roach joint. They've always said, oh, this is really good, or this is a this or that, or guessed all kinds of stuff. But, so people make fun of me because I have a lot of weed. And why are you, Dana Larson, smoking roach joints? But, no, man, my roach joints are awesome. Old school.
Oh, fuck, that's awesome.
Last time you rolled a roach joint there, Mark?
I used to roll roach joints. I wanted to get to the 7th generation roach joint that took 4 million joints to roll to get to. And at one point I had 2.5 pounds of roaches saved up. 2.5 pounds of roaches. That was a lot of roaches. And then I stopped smoking herb. I ended up giving those roaches away to a guy who literally said, this is like Christmas and my birthday on the same day.
So like Jesus then?
2.5 pounds of roaches.
Because Jesus' birthday is on Christmas, right? So he always got
just
screwed.
Like Jesus. Not the one that, yes, Jesus, exactly. That's it. The potentially non-existent guy that definitely existed.
No, he existed, and he was getting everybody high and using his cannabis tinctures and oils to cure everybody. Things. I'm sure Chris has got a thing or two to say about that, but
no shit,
he was real, and he was a stoner.
Awesome. Yeah, my view is it's like I don't if you really look into what scholars have to say about the No Jesus thing. There's a lot of things those guys are missing. I've looked through some of that. My view is it's like there's a base of some sort of historical story to it. It goes beyond the Bible. You got to look at the Gnostic texts and stuff too. But then I got this Roman solar mythology slapped on top of it and got totally mythologized, and it came out in the New Testament. But you know, the stuff about cannabism and the Bible and that type of stuff, it's pretty solid. You know, it's interesting information, and I think revelation for our modern age. You know, and I think that's true of cannabis and a lot of these different traditions. It's like if you don't really know the history of this plant and how long we've been involved with it and its story around the globe, you're really missing a big part of the picture and the relevance of this modern day renaissance that we're seeing in this plant, because people have been using it and enjoying it like we are right now for thousands of years. And you know, it's great. You know, I'm still learning stuff. You know, right now I'm working on a book about cannabis and the occult, and there's some really interesting stuff here. I'll post in the thread there a thing from the Picatrix. This is from the 1050 AD, and they're talking about cannabis oil in a incense recipe. You know, so it's just incredible how long people have been doing this, how long people have been extracting cannabinoids from the plant, and yeah, it's an incredible history.
It's pretty damn awesome. There's no doubt about it.
And you know, we're at a time right now where there's a lot of hate between, as I guess there always is, hate between different groups and demonizing of different religions and stuff. But it would be nice to have that rich tradition of cannabis through Christianity, goes through Islam, and goes through a lot of other religions. You know, it's hard to hate somebody when you're passing the joint and passing the bong around and stuff. And I kind of feel cannabis revolution, global change that's happening could lead to a lot more peace and tolerance and understanding in the long run. You know, when you're drinking a lot, and a lot of our politicians are very heavy drinkers, that numbs your conscience, it makes it easy to do violent and irrational things. And when you're smoking herb, I mean, it doesn't make everybody instantly enlightened to smoke weed, but it certainly pushes you in that direction, I think, and helps produce more calmness and more brotherhood and feelings of unity and stuff. And so I kind of think that this cannabis thing that's happening right now and this global change is going to have a lot of good, not just in terms of not putting people in jail and just in terms of the environmental benefits of more hemp and all that, but also in terms of the consciousness change and maybe the unity it can bring us.
Well, you know, like go to any sort of vapor lounge or cannabis club and people are chill, and then go to any bar in town at closing time and witness the violence and hostility and bad behavior that takes place. And that speaks for itself right there, you know what I mean? I think that these prohibitionists really need to go spend a night in a vapor lounge and listen to people's intellectual conversations, because oftentimes cannabis does produce, that's probably one of the things about this show, is getting high and people get kind of intellectual and philosophical and have new associations between ideas. And the things that Dane is talking about, the things that theme is a common theme through history, through unrelated groups and unrelated people coming to the same conclusions about this plant. So it's not like something that, you know, he's just noticing. It's something that people have always noticed about this wonderful herb. And I think, you know, the more people, like Bob Marley said, the more people smoke ganja, the more we have peace on earth. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, like I think if, you know, you could show Islamic people this great history of cannabis and Sufis and fakirs and other stories, you know, and Jewish people about cannabism and the holy anointing oil and incenses of the temple, and, you know, Hindus about Shiva's relationship with cannabis, and Chinese about the Taoist, that really creates an even bigger bond. You know, it ties you back to your history as well as your present day. But, you know, I tell you what, man, somebody smokes cannabis on the planet, I'm going to share it with them. And that's a common thing. You know, I don't care if I'm down in Africa and it's pygmies, man. It's like, yeah, I'm going to hoot that dagger with them, you know, or wherever I am. You know, it's a bonding thing, and you know, it widens your scope. And that was a big thing about the jazz era. You know, blacks and whites mixing together, because all of a sudden they're smoking herb, and their tunnel vision of reality is opening up to see a human being across the table for them and empathize with that human being and that brotherhood and sisterhood of this plant. And that's the real big thing that I think that this movement is generating towards. To you look at these medical clubs and places like that, they're like community centers, man. You know, people are feeling good about being there, and they relate to the people there. and it's like a new sense of community that, you know, a lot of people haven't really experienced before this movement.
It is a beautiful thing. Well said, Chris. Well said. I think we need to have a little bit of a bong rip right now. Step things into the next gear here on Church 62. Gear 3. Gear 3. All right then.
This is one of my favorites.
Which one's this?
That's the Dennis.
Oh, the Dennis.
It is tasty.
What is it?
It was named Dennis Hopper. Through the people I got the seeds from.
Background of the genetic? Question mark?
No. A gentleman up here in the coast we call the golfer.
The
A little Dennis and a little Hopper.
Yeah, a little bit of Dennis crossed with Hopper. We were going to call it the dental hopper, but it was a lot less dental and a lot more Dennis, so in the end we went with Dennis. There's no...
It's just a name.
I had nothing to do with it.
I had absolutely nothing to do with it either.
But how was it?
I just grew the seed.
The hit was very lovely. I mean, it was by no means... yeah, it was nice. It was strong. It was a strong rip.
It's tasty. It's got a nice...
I've been hitting these terps and they've destroyed me for taste.
That's what happens. I hit some of those OG terps there last weekend. It was so tasty.
Today you hit the lemon terps.
Yeah, that was tasty. What was your favorite taste? You had a lemon terps mixed with something?
It was the Jack with this, the one that's gone now, the Master Flat, this one. This one, wasn't it? It was this one that I pressed your hash in. I remember because I ripped the... I liked it so much I ripped it apart.
When you say lemon terps, is it like terps from like lemon haze or actual lemons?
I think it was lemon. Tony, maybe you could reiterate which lemon is this? Is this like a lemon pie or is
That's
this
from lemon pie. So that's from flowers. So that's derived strain-specific cannabis-derived terpene. So that would be from the flowers of lemon pie. Sun-grown.
How that hits you, how it opens up.
Oh yeah, it's like aromatherapy.
Yeah, it's aromatherapy. It's just how those terpenes modulate things.
I think at one time I met Horatio in the lounge, and he was actually using actual citrus terps mixed in with cannabis. Is that correct, Horatio? Or
no? Were you dabbing or were you smelling?
Dabbing, yeah, dabbing. It was some sort of citrus.
Well, that's LHO. I don't know from what era, but that's limonene hash oil itself, compared to using butane as a solvent.
Oh yeah, because that added a real flavor to it.
Well, that was in the preliminary development stages. It's gone a long way in the last 2 years.
Before you got the orange out of the clear.
Pretty much. That was the big discovery, the aldehydes, and then discovering how to do it without using other toxic chemicals, which would defeat the purpose of using limonene.
Interesting.
Some of these CO2 extractors they have down the States, they take out the terps and a different thing, and so you got like little vials with all this different stuff in it. But it seems like you must need about 250K to even get started down that road.
I'd say a little bit cheaper, but definitely 250K is a pretty good unit. Not too shabby. Everyone's so quiet. Everyone's just so quiet. Okay, why is it called hash oil if it's not hash? Okay, Kavlin, I'll tell you. Because hash oil is to differentiate between weed oil or herb oil, which is made from herb. Hash oil is made from hash. You take hash and you make oil, which is why often you'll see the word RHO, rosin hash oil, because they made it from hash. This is like Rob Clark talks about this in not the rosin aspect of, but just the differences between what an oil is versus what a hash is, and then what hash oil is versus what just oil is. Depends on what they made it from. I guess it's all becomes, perspective at that point.
So, Bubbleman, would he be basically saying that all trim is like a cat, like that's hash? Like, that's where I was like, what does he mean by hash oil? Does he mean like I make bubble, then I would make oil out of it? Because that would be
Well, back then it
wasteful.
was like often hash oil, I think, probably happened like in India and in Nepal when when hash would spoil, they would often turn it into oil. And it was this Nepali hash oil. It was crazy shit actually. It was dark, dark, dark. The first time I met Rob in 95, I believe, or no, sorry, 90 I had met him in 95. This was the first time he came to my house, which was about a year later. Hillary brought him over, and I had Nepali hash oil. And Rob was hilarious. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll smoke anything. Like I don't, like it's probably nasty, dirty, made this way and that way." And but it was made from Nepali finger hash, and it was potent like you would not believe, especially for that timeline. Wasn't seeing much like it, but it got me interested in the key terms of okay, so hash oil is hash made from oil made from hash, which they definitely do. I think for a while too, it was almost before Soma came out with the jelly hash, which was ResDog showing him how to blast butane and make butane, and then he would take the butane oil and he would mix it with his non-melty bubble hashes. The strains that weren't melting and liquefying, he would just put that oil in and he created jelly hash, which of course became a quite well-known term. I think it happened quite a bit before that, 20 or 30 years maybe, when they started adding oil to hash to make it look gummy and to make it look like, the cleanest of the cream, that uber cream that you only get at a certain time of year during a certain harvest when you didn't have any drought and all the variables lined up perfectly. And then you get that cream, but in the smallest numbers. There's never like a ton of that cream available. It's just like, yeah, give me like 2,000 pounds of that cream. Nope. Maybe one day.
No, that's weird because like I've watched a lot of the strain hunter stuff, even just to see like what I saw the handmade gums and I'm like, okay, now is that heated to make oil? Is that squeezed to make oil? Is that cut to make oil? Like basically, when is it traditional good versus traditional bad? Like stepping stuff into the ground to make it red. Like, what would you define as the difference? Because there's definitely lots of oils that were just cut with alcohol to make it runny, but when was an oil really like, was it ever pressed through screens like and heated? Like when they talked about the stone, like there's so many ways to say oil. Some is a stretching agent and another is a product like rosin.
Hmm. Was that a question directed at me?
Yeah, like both you and Chris, like since it's historically coming out of 20 years ago, I obviously can't tell you what hash oil was like. That would be illegal. I'd be a child. But in the old school sense, when was oil really a good thing? Like finger rub was a good form of hash oil. But when is it bad? Like when it's just putting alcohol in a bunch of shitty hash and selling oil. Like oil is a very loose word. That's kind of why I was like, what's the definition of a good old school hash oil versus a bad one?
Well, I guess with any of those processes, if they were done correctly and well done without leaving massive footprints, then then they would be all accordingly good in their own way. Back in the day, I can only go back to like say the 70s and the 80s when oil was kind of like only really a certain person did it. It was always very like in his garage, nobody got to see, and it was just like you get this. I remember first seeing like dark oil, which turned into eventually green oil, which eventually turned into red cherry oil, which eventually turned into honey oil. And once you climbed all those little steps, you never went back. You never were like, okay, like I need to get some of that green oil, man. Like that was the stuff right there. It's no.
I hate to say it, but green oil is still killing. People say it gives them, like, I always study why people like certain things that I'm like, that's bad. Are you addicted to a side effect? Because a lot of side effects are addictive, and there's a strain of people that want green oil, and apparently I've seen it on the market. It's back. We did go back, and black hash is back for $10. It's apparently people love it all.
Well, I think that there's still people starting their journey, so it's not that we went back, because I'm not buying it, and I damn sure know you're not buying it. I think a bunch of new people just got turned on, and they're just like, sometimes...
I like how you said it.
You know, 19th century oil, you know, at least in the Islamic world, they were making it by boiling it in water. I think I sent you a little piece I found on that a couple weeks back, Mark. And they would boil it, and then they would collect the oil drops at the top of the water. So that was a pretty clean method of extraction. I don't know what kind of returns they would get on that. They probably had larger amounts to play with, although people today, you know, maybe it's a better return than these rosin methods. I don't know, but it was done via water and heated water.
I bet the sizzle is strong in their oil.
Yeah, I bet, you know. And then they just dry it out after, you know, like lay it out. Collect it and lay it out.
So, Chris, that's like pretty much a pot decarb tech. Like, were they adding like a coconut oil and then pulling off that layer, or are they just taking the terps?
Just
like,
taking the oil. Yeah, like, you know, boiling it up, I guess, same way, making the oil come off of the leaf matter and then collecting the oil on the top of the water. And it was pretty potent. They would mix like a drop of that, they would say, into some yogurt and take it that way. And it was the beverage of unity amongst Sufis and stuff like that.
The beverage of unity?
Because of the prohibition numbers, we can't do that anymore. Every time I remember, before this, it was just a fucking plant. Of course I have a bushel for our tea today. It's like no problem. It's like cutting food for a cow or just one animal. Fuck yeah, there's a cauldron with, you know, little 10, 15 pounder bubbling away so we can get some terp soup to get whacked on.
Yeah, well, I posted a recipe for like from the 11th century there in the chat there, and it was talking for cannabis resin, and as the one guy who wrote about it said that'd be about $4,000 worth of hash in the modern price range. You know what I mean? So obviously they had some big amounts to work with.
Well, Todd was saying earlier that it grows on trees.
Little trees.
Yeah, it does.
Not always so little.
Big ones, too.
They get awfully big for one season.
I don't think Remo actually knows how to grow a small plant. Even his clones are 8 feet tall.
He goes directly into an 8-foot.
Oh my gosh.
You know, oil in the 70s, there was that green crappy oil that everybody made. Then there was like a red kind of hash oil. And then there was this really nice stuff called honey oil. And it was like, looked like honey. And it was a pretty pure product. I don't know how they were making it. You know, there was a lot of different, it was much less refined thing back then. But the honey oil that was around, I think it was probably as good as a lot of the oil that we're seeing today.
One frightening way that they were making it, especially if it was the red oil, is they were taking naphtha, which is camping fuel, and hopefully if they were at least somewhat smart, they were running it through a still and collecting out the rust and the lead inhibitors that were placed inside the naphtha. Although back in the 70s they didn't have that in there. That came in, I believe, in the 90s when they started putting rust and lead inhibitors into the solvents. But they would run that solvent, if they were smart, very cold solvent, washed quickly over the material, and you could get this very almost red, light red to golden oil. And then if you wanted it to be pure gold, you could run that liquid solvent and the oil through carbon filters, crushed stone or whatever, and it would filter out the red color, and you would lose quite a bit of weight, but you would end up with a very honey-colored substance. And if you kept going and kept running it through carbon filter, you could eventually get an almost clear oil. And my friend only did it one time. He said it took him like, it was like 10 grams of the red to make the honey, and then the honey was like another, 10 grams. It was a ridiculous amount of red oil to make like a single 1 or 2 gram dram bottle of this oil. I have a picture of it on one of my hard drives. I'll have to look it up and check it out.
I remember when green oil gave way to water hash. So you remember Ozzie James that was around on the Sunshine Coast around 2000? He was the first guy I met that was really making the water hash. And what had happened with him is he fell in with some bikers who were, using a lot of their seconds to make that green oil that everybody was making around that time. And then all of a sudden James showed up with the bubble bags, and the guy that was making the oil, he was making a killing because he was getting everybody's trim and shit like that to make the oil. He was ready to take a hit out on James because all of a sudden everybody was like, wow, what's this stuff? This is so much better than that green oil. And he was walking around with like baseballs of bubble ash and stuff like that. But yeah, the guy was ready to kill him over it.
Dude, James was quite a character. I don't know whatever happened to him, but wow, like the last time I saw him, I traded him a bunch of bubble bags for just this giant rock of black opal. Literally like a 5 or 6 pound black opal stone.
Yeah, he gave that stuff away like nothing, you know what I mean? It's like I know a few people that got opals from him, and they're just worth a ton. And he was such a character. Like, he was out of the Wild West. The guy probably weighed like 140 pounds, but he would go up against anybody, man. He was just like ready to drop down, with anybody that, hassled any of his friends or anything like that. He was such a character.
Yeah, he really was. I don't know why we're talking about him like in past tense. I hope he's still alive.
I heard that he was discovered at the bottom of an opal, or that his remains were at the bottom of an opal mine. I tried tracking him down through people in Australia a couple of times, and that was the story I heard, that he
bottom of an opal
bad way.
That makes sense. He did have a connection to opals. Well, that's too bad. He definitely didn't leave when he left. It was like he seemed to be like.
I think he had to get out in a hurry.
Damn. Well, sometimes that can catch up to you.
Yeah.
James with the death tech. Someone in chat. Poor joke, but everything's a tech nowadays. Take a Q-tip and wipe the inside of your bowl, and it's the Zamboni tech. It's the Q-tip tech. I invented that. Just check out my Instagram. It's on there. So there. What's going on? You writing a story or a book, Tony? You look like you're deep in thought. Deep in thought.
You're funny. No, I'm just finishing up this Blue River extract website.
Blue River.
Yes, sir. But I was typing. You caught me.
You know what? I'm having like a good problem right now. 2 people now have said that there are spammers in the room. Analytical Mike was one of them, and I can't remember who the other one was. So without even questioning it, I just blocked these people. Both of them have since texted me, did you seriously just block me for saying, I don't even know what he's saying, for asking what limonene hash oil is? I was like, I would never block someone for saying what limonene hash oil is. I suspect I blocked. It's just funny. I can't even keep up. I'm gonna have to be a little more, make sure 3 or 4 people say that someone is being a spammer before because I'm trying to just keep up, and I cut corners, and now I'm blocking people that are they're both pissed off.
See, as someone who's sitting here watching you with like 6 screens going, I can't do it, so I'm not home and chat now. It's easier. My mind doesn't work like this.
Dude, this is insane.
I know that.
People hit me up, and then they hit me up on
I'm
this
sending you
thing.
messages over here going, hey, block this person. I send it to you privately.
Oh, lots of people do.
I know.
Look, this guy's writing me again in a separate place. Kevin Mills is choked. Okay, Kevin, I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. It's someone that I did trust. But I can't take the time out to talk to you right now because I'm actually in Hash Church.
We're talking about hash. And you know what? I think we need to talk about some hash.
All right. Talk about hash. We got a little bit of time left. We got about 20 minutes left in today's Hash Church. Let's make it a good 20 minutes. Oh, did Chris just bounce? Well, shit. See you later, Chris. You didn't need to leave. We have lots of open spaces, but we do appreciate your coming down and sharing your knowledge.
Hey guys, I send love. I gotta go do a few things myself.
All right, Todd. Thanks for coming out today.
We'll see you next Sunday, of course. And yeah, I hug somebody. That was the message today's Hash Church.
Yes, that's Michael Franti's song, right?
I think it is. Everybody's got to hug somebody at least once a day. Yeah, I didn't think of that, but now that you say it.
Yeah, man, that's a great tune.
Franti. All right, everybody, I hope you have a great day. All right,
Peace, Todd. Church. Well, it's pretty nice out. I kind of wish I didn't have the boat in storage. One of those days you could get out. It's probably freezing though. Freezing.
It's cold out.
I spent 8 hours on the mountain yesterday, without a heater, without any sort of going inside.
We should be making bubble hash.
I just literally spent.
Now.
Yeah, on the mountain. I want to do it on the mountain, big time. Oh, Kevin Mills is still sending me messages. How about I apologize, Kevin, and we'll sort it out, okay? Is that okay? It's just chat. We're almost done. I'll make sure it all works out next time. I don't even know how to unblock people from the YouTube chat.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you... I don't know how to unblock, so I was wondering if you did. So I think once the episode's done next week, you're good to go.
It must be. People think that I've blocked them all the time. They're like, I can't comment on the YouTube chat, but it's because they're on like a phone or a tablet, and apparently you can't post when you're on one of those. You got to be on a computer. So if you do really take this shit seriously and you want to be able to post and stuff, just go on a computer. It's easier. It's better. And if you don't have one, then just do the tablet and don't be able to type. I don't even remember blocking the name Kevin Mills, to be honest.
Whatevs.
More terps than the bone.
Long rip.
Really flavorful rosin right in front of me. Now, are you finding it different with the temperatures with the rosin press? Like, what temperatures are you pressing at now?
I'm not, I'm just kind of running I'm more excited to get full melt dry sift and full melt bubble hash. I'm not as obsessed with rosin as I was in the beginning.
No, I'm doing hash and dry sift basically every
Yeah,
day.
in that sense, this has been cool for a while. I haven't pressed much in a while. And keep in mind though, I pressed like 40 or 60 grams, so they're just now starting to get down into smaller piles. I like having it in my stash, but I think I'm going to focus my attention on producing that.
That's the 45, and once I can pull on that, I can make it pretty stable.
That snappy snap. And church, fuck Kevin, bong rip. That's hilarious. Don't block me, bro. Hey, I make mistakes just like anyone. I guess I'll have to be careful who I listen to when they say someone's spamming. All right, Kevin's good. He's good to go. He's going to be back next week. We do apologize, Kevin, and I guess on that note, no one's really talking much. Everyone seems to be in their own world, so I'm just going to end Hash Church right now. I'll thank everyone that came out and enjoyed sharing comments with them, obviously. Big shout-out to Jen Doe and Pat Emerson, and to Harlan Ryman and his family. Sorry what happened to you. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I guess we'll see you guys next week for more good hash fun. Peace.